going to catch up. Look, as soon as I switch off this camera, there's going to be like a cool lightning cloud light thing in the background, but nobody wants to see like the parking lot here. So let's go back to the rocket like this, and I will keep an eye out for cool lighting effects in the clouds. Good grief. As soon as I try to show it, it's not going to show up on camera.
Yeah, exactly.
Let me say thank you to some more folks that are tossing the support in here. Musical Wolves, thank you for the support. We appreciate you. Oh my gosh. Was Monday scrub, Musical Wolf says, because SLS can only launch on the weekends. It's the Saturday or Sunday launch system. Huh. I'm just going to delete that comment and we're going to move on.
I appreciate that joke.
Oh my gosh. We need like a soundboard that's like or something, right? Alex Pietras says, let the second lunar age begin. Thank you for the support there, Alex. We appreciate you. Falcon Heavy with some curly L's, 50 curly L's actually. Falcon Heavy, thank you so much for the support from across the pond. Pierre Nickel here with some euros saying, thanks, Chris G, for the opening. Greetings from Germany. And a very rare Adrian fan club in there. Hashtag Adrian fan club. Thank you, Pierre, for the support. Anthony Stark was a red.
Kind words.
Yep. Anthony Stark was a red team member. Thank you so much, Anthony, for hopping in. We've got Tommy Vosk says, let's go to that tightly locked wheel of cheese. Bon fromage, le SLS. See, I know what that means because of Dexter's Lab. Anybody? Chat? Dexter's Lab?
Yes. Yeah.
Omelette du fromage. Omelette du fromage. Thank you, Jack. Tommy, thank you so much for the support. Chat, back me up. If anybody knows what we're talking about, please put something in chat for me. I'm not that old. Saturn Man, you are. Thanks for all your work, Saturn Man. We appreciate that. Deplorical. I see what the name is now. Thank you, Oracle, for the support. A Varial Falcon. Chance with some curly L's attached. Moon. It's very confusing sometimes because every time I hear moon, it's like, dang it, moon. I don't know if anybody knows that meme from back in the day, but thank you for chanting moon there for us, Averill. Andrea Bruckmeyer says, no question, just thank you. Watching from Germany. It seems like we got quite a few of the Europeans here with us early in the morning. Thank you so much, Andrea, for the support. Let me get just a couple more of these here. Connor G must be a member of the membership program because Connor says, loving all the behind the scenes and other random clips that members have gotten to see this weekend. Or this week, actually. Enjoyed watching Jack chasing the butch earlier this week and the SLS boop last night. Chris, thanks for setting up that SLS boop, by the way.
Oh, we already released it last night. Okay, there we go.
We did, didn't we? I don't know.
I guess we did. I had to go to sleep at some point to be conscious for this. So my apologies if I misspoken. That's already out. But if it's out, I hope you enjoyed the nose boop with Daryl. Yes.
Nice. I don't know if I completely understand this one, but Musical Wolves asks, could a disposable camera be used to check temperature based on condensation? I need a disposable camera for that.
I don't follow why disposable would be needed for that.
Chris, look, Chris.
Yeah.
The sun is rising.
Yep.
We've got a little bit of pink over on the right-hand side of the NSF Skycam. And is that actually the rising sun illuminating those cloud tops in the distance, or is that closer to the rocket? You're there in person.
Yeah, so in the distance, yes, off to the right-hand side of that shot, yes, that is the sun illuminating those clouds. The white cloud hanging directly over SLS is lit up by the pad cam, or by the pad lights.
This is why I asked somebody who was actually there. That is very cool. The sun continues to rise out there at Kennedy Space Center, folks. We're standing by for the launch of Artemis. About 8 hours, a little bit less than 8 hours from now when the window opens here. But we'll keep going back. Still haven't seen that lightning, but that sun is coming up. We're going to have some awesome sunrise shots here. I think Jack actually hustled off to do some sunrise time lapses with
He's still
SLS
doing them,
here. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, he and Nate are busy doing sunrise shots. Yep.
Excellent. And I believe we're going to keep watching that, but we will also check in with our good friends, the up-close cameras as well. The engineering cameras are still here. Can't forget them. Let me grab just a couple more of these. I got a little bit behind. Thank you so much for becoming a Red Team member. Gusta, I think. Thank you so much as well for the support. Alan Walker says, thanks for all the space-related coverage. Keep up the great work. We appreciate you, Alan. Thank you for watching here. Gerhard Ferner? I think I said that correctly. I hope I didn't mispronounce, but it says that's a
good
Patrat
German
member.
name.
It is.
Yes.
We need Adrian on here. Maybe later Adrian can pronounce that name correctly.
Maybe like Gerhard.
That's probably correct.
It would be Gerhard because my last name is Gebhardt. So yes.
I will. Y'all just do that one for me. I'll let you do the pronunciation. And then finally, Gixer actually made it down from Tennessee. Let's pray for a successful launch. Gixer, glad you made it. Hope you get to see a launch in person. Definitely enjoy the show here. A couple more members. Schaefer Blade Gaming, Chris G. I assume that's a different Chris G that signed up for the membership program. And Blitz as well. A couple folks joining the membership thing here. You know something? I don't want to make this stream just about thanking our supporters. It's always a balance because we couldn't do what we do without the support of people like you. I didn't mean for that to rhyme, but it's true. Somebody else say something, please, Chris.
No, it really is true. I mean, we can't do this without you. Watching the ad at the beginning of the video, those who give super chats, those who are part of the membership channel, it's all of those combined that allow us to be here, to have the equipment, to have everything, to bring you this coverage, to tap into the NASA engineering feeds, to be able to deploy the NSF Skycam. I love that name, actually. I love it. Yes.
It's just because it's pointed at the sky.
Exactly, like that. No, I mean it really truly is, and I know sometimes thank yous can sometimes sound insincere, right? They're not. We are always humbled and truly grateful for all of the get from all of you, and like I said too, it's not just super chats, it's not just memberships. Those are wonderful for us and they really do help us. But watching that ad at the beginning is also a huge help to us. As annoying as advertisements are, I know.
Yeah, that is definitely a thing. It's a good way to support us for free. Not that your time is invaluable, but it is a great way to keep us doing what we're doing here. Phil, how are we on updates right now? Do we have any updates as to what's coming up next here?
Well, we're still the clock is still in a planned hold. We're about 40 minutes away from resuming the clock at T-minus 6 hours 40 minutes. I believe they are in liquid hydrogen slow fill. So I think that's part of the reason why this particular camera is focused on the inner tank, because we're looking at the core stage inner tank umbilical, and one of the lines with the sort of the red hovering over it is the liquid hydrogen vent line, and so that line takes gaseous hydrogen that boils off out to the flare stack. So they've started liquid hydrogen fill earlier than they did on Monday, and I believe the last update we got was that they're getting close to chilling down the lines in the liquid oxygen lines in the core stage engine section. So liquid oxygen takes longer to load, and so they usually started early, but today they started both commodities at the same time. So they want to get to the point where they can test out the engine 3 bleed, and so I won't be surprised if we get there maybe a little earlier than maybe even 8 o'clock Eastern. So we'll have to see about that. But it does sound like we're still continuing with the cryogenic loading of propellant on the core stage.
All right. I'm going to scroll through and see if I can't get a couple of the viewer questions here right quick. Let's see. I'm going to get a more recent one down here. Oh, here's a great technical question, Philip. How much do the engines gimbal on SLS as opposed to shuttle? We know they're the same engines, air quote. They call them something different, but they're the shuttle engines. But do they gimbal? Do they actually thrust vector more or less on SLS as opposed to shuttle? Are they allowed to gimbal more or less?
Right, that's a good way of putting it. They're allowed to gimbal a little less. I mean, we're talking about a few degrees less, but this is an inline vehicle, and so it the shuttle was hanging off it was a side mounted orbiter on the tank, and so they needed
Asymmetric.
more. Yeah, they needed more control authority with the engines. The engine's not necessarily always pointing straight through the center of mass of the vehicle, or so you have to align the center of thrust with the center of mass, and so this is more naturally aligned that way. But they do, and as when the vehicle lifts off today, it will do a roll program. It'll look a lot like the space shuttle, and the solid rocket boosters are actually doing most of the work there. And so Alex in the back is just threw an update past us here. So they have started the liquid oxygen chill down of the main propulsion system, which is basically all the plumbing in the core stage that connects the liquid oxygen tank to the engines.
Another important step in the process, it sounds like, right?
Yes.
I mean, it wouldn't be in the process if it was an important step. Maybe that's sort of a silly thing to say, but you got me on comms with you. So what are you going to do?
Right.
Well,
maybe we'll get to see maybe they'll throw us a shot of the engines here. We might be able to see a little bit of venting out of those during this part of the process.
Luckily,
a guy,
we'll Philip.
Yeah.
Let's see here. What's that on? 7 survey says we'll put it over there. There you go. Shot of the engines.
All right. I'm
not seeing any vapors
not
yet, but
seeing
we'll keep an eye
anything yet.
on it. Yeah. Okay, let's grab some more questions here. Where's Rocket Bat? The previous launch attempt, I think we had a potential passenger to the moon hanging on to the. Was it on the insulation or was it on one of the SRBs?
I think it was getting friendly with all sorts of places on the vehicle. So, yeah, I think it liked the white. It looked like.
Okay.
So, but we haven't seen it today.
We'll keep an eye out to see if we see one of these engineering cameras zoom in on a small black speck that isn't actually painted on the rocket. We had a bat clinging on to part of the rocket previously, so
right. Those checkerboards are not supposed to move around.
They're not supposed to have wings.
Not until the vehicle moves.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see here. Trying to read through. We've talked about this previously, but since we're doing another stream here, Philip, I think this is another good one for you. What happens if one of the engines fails mid-flight? Can other engines gimbal quickly and compensate the loss? Or I think, if I recall correctly, it's like different parts of the launch, you have sort of different abilities to recover from engine underperformance or engine loss, correct?
That's correct. And so, as the person who asked that question, that's an important part of it, which is that if an engine shuts down early, then obviously the vehicle has to realign the thrust through the vehicle. So the engines would gimbal to keep the vehicle pointed in the right direction. And but yeah, the major impact on the flight would be the loss of that performance. And so the exact number of seconds will vary from one day to another. So again, just to quickly go off on a tangent, just to demonstrate that flying today versus launching last Monday, the splashdown date basically didn't change. It's still somewhere around October 10th, October 11th. So if they'd launched on Monday, we would have seen a 42-day mission. Today, we're looking at about a 37-day mission. And so depending on what's happening in flight, depending on the winds at altitude and so forth, somewhere around 3.5 minutes into flight, if they can get all 4 engines to burn that long, and they would rather that they burn the entire 8 minutes. But if an engine were to shut down after about 3.5 minutes, they would still be able to do pretty much the entire mission. If one engine were to shut down earlier than that, then you're starting to look at different alternate missions. So instead of going into orbit around the moon, they could just do a lunar flyby, or if they don't have enough performance to do that, they might be able to go out a couple 100,000 kilometers out. If they can get out to lunar distance, the most important test objective for the mission is to is for Orion to re-enter Earth at lunar return speeds. So you need to get to an orbit that goes out to the distance of the moon or relatively close to it. So that might be another alternate mission they could do. And then if you had something worse than that, a worse performance case, then you're stuck with something that's more like the flight test that they did in 2014, which only went out 4,000 or 5,000 kilometers, I think. Or you could be stuck in low Earth orbit, for instance. So it really depends on if there's an engine or an early engine shutdown, when that would be.
Gotcha. In some cases, it would be the rocket wouldn't be able to continue on because lacking 25% of the thrust on the core stage there would not work. And also the rate that you actually get rid of the mass of the rocket, because remember, the rocket works by blowing up the fuel and throwing it out the back, right? And so if you only have 3 engines blowing up fuel and throwing it out the back, you don't lose weight or lose mass as quickly as if you had 4 engines doing that job. So it depends on exactly where you are in the flight when you have that problem with the engine, whether or not you can recover from that and continue on, or whether or not the rocket would not go to space today. So another good question there. We're going to keep trying to get as many of your questions as we can. If you do have questions for us, tag us in chat at NASA Spaceflight. Let's see. Oh, Philip, here's another good one. I like these because we have some of these cameras up close here. But let's talk about how SLS actually sits or is attached to
I think
the
we saw
pad.
some lightning.
Oh, did we finally see some lightning?
I think I saw some lightning there.
See, I was looking at another camera and I didn't see it.
Right.
Well, the question is, are the clamps area of SLS the primary load-bearing structures? Does it just sit on the pad? Does the tower hold up parts of it? Like, how exactly does SLS stay on the ground besides gravity?
Well, for this vehicle, gravity is the main. I mean, it's almost 6 million pounds of weight here. And so, well, when it's fully loaded, so we're not quite there yet, but we're at least 3.5 to 4 million pounds, and as they put more propellant in the core stage, the vehicle will start to get closer and closer to its launch weight. But just that weight itself is heavy enough to keep the vehicle on these. There you can see around the checkerboards. You have these little. And you can see these, they're called vehicle support posts. So in this shot, you can see the one that's labeled number 3. And so each aft skirt of the solid rocket boosters has 4 of these around the circumference. And this is shuttle, that particular hardware is shuttle heritage hardware. And so the vehicle is basically just sitting on those, but there are no explosive bolts that need to be cut at liftoff. This vehicle is not held down to the launch pad like the shuttle solid rocket boosters, where it is held to the pad up close to the top of the vehicle. There is a vehicle stabilizer arm that's holding on to the side of the vehicle to prevent it from swaying too much in high winds. But it really is mostly just the weight that is keeping the vehicle sitting on top of those vehicle support posts.
Right, gotcha. All right, it's one less system to fail. Hopefully, gravity won't fail.
Right.
But if you don't have clamps and bolts and all that sort of stuff, it's one less thing to worry about when it's go time, right?
Well, you also can't do F12 hack gravity, so like you can in KSB. One thing I would like to add about the vehicle stabilization system arm. So we've talked a lot about how all the swing arms, the tail service mast umbilicals, pull back from the vehicle at T0. And their commands are actually triggered at T0 the moment the count reaches 0 and the solids are ignited, and everything to pull them away. The vertical stabilizer actually receives its signal to separate 0.25 seconds earlier than T0 to give it just a little bit of time to disconnect from the bolts, to disconnect from the clamps that it holds onto on SLS and start to fall away, because as soon as you light those solid rocket boosters, you're moving within 0.3 seconds, and they want to make sure that VSS, that vehicle stabilization system, has enough time to detach and swing down and start its swing down and away. So they actually blow that a quarter of a second before solid rocket booster ignition is commanded. But realistically, at that point, you're not stopping the countdown at that point. when they blow the VSS. So and I keep saying blow. When they disconnect it, I'm sorry. I'm used to shuttle days when it's all pyrotechnics. I apologize, but when they give the command to disconnect it, it's a little bit before T0.
Right. When they intentionally do the thing, right?
When they intentionally do the thing. There we go. Yes.
Yeah. All right. We are going to continue getting some questions here. We've talked about this before, but it's interesting to talk about. Are there any reason?
Hang on one second for me. Yep. So there are a couple of issues the teams are discussing with liquid hydrogen loading. They are in stop flow right now for both liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen. The liquid hydrogen line received an overpressure warning midway through the rocket. No damage on hardware, but it's in stop flow. Okay, so they've gotten overpressure warnings before as they've gone to fuel this vehicle. Yeah, so we'll wait and see, but just for like awareness, like they've gotten overpressure warnings before. They've stopped before in the wind wet dress, and I think it happened in the count as well on Monday where we got an overpressure alarm. And those are all sort of in there way below the levels that that would trigger a problem to usually automatically stop the fueling sequence. And the other part of this update is that the liquid hydrogen vent line has been active since about 8 minutes ago to vent the tanks.
Which is
the liquid
good.
oxygen line overpressure warning is draining right now for a moment and looking at reactivating it shortly. Yeah, it seems like they just got an overpressure notice on both and they're working through the standard troubleshooting parameters. With a vehicle this big and the pressures that you've got to use to flow everything up into the tanks, everything is very monitored to make sure that you don't accidentally overpressure something. So honestly, it just kind of sounds like that's what they're working through right now, and we'll wait to see what the next update is, but they've worked through overpressures before in the wet dresses, and I believe it happened on Monday as well.
Gotcha. Good updates. Again, y'all, those are official updates coming from the NASA line, and we are going to bring those to you just about as soon as they come through. We don't play them through here because then, we're trying to answer questions and interact with y'all and let y'all know that we're here watching this with you, but we do listen to those. We've actually got dedicated people listening to that and providing updates so we can make sure that you have up-to-the-date information. Let's see here. We were talking, and I know, Chris, if y'all are continuing to listen to that update, I can handle this one. If not, just jump in. Yep. What's the specific reason behind everyone's favorite orange rocket actually being orange?
I love this. Okay. As you can tell by how excited and like puberty my voice just got there and how it cracked.
I wasn't going to say anything.
But I'll say it. Go ahead and say it because I'll make fun of myself for how excited I get too. Okay, so this is called spray-on foam insulation, or SOFI, SOFI. And it's kind of like a light tannish color when they first put it on, when you first spray it on. But then just like your skin tans in UV radiation when you're outside, so does the SOFI foam. So the orange color of the tank is...
Wait, Chris.
Yeah.
Chris, did you just say SOFI foam?
I did.
Spray on foam insulation foam?
Yeah, it's kind of like
ATM
when you say
machine?
pin number.
Pin number? Okay, so I'm so sorry.
No. Please do. Like I heard it. I heard myself say it and just went, I'm just gonna keep going.
It's gonna be a long stream. Sorry.
It really will. But but the SOFI, that foam on the tank orange in UV radiation just like your skin does. So the darker the orange of the foam, the more time it has been exposed to UV radiation. The lighter color orange the foam, the younger it is. So that's an interesting way when you look at the tank and you see the different shades of orange. The darker the shade, the older the foam. The lighter the shade, the younger the foam.
Gotcha. It literally tans as it's out in the Florida sunshine, huh?
Mm-hmm. In fact, it had a tan line at one point from the stand on Mississippi. It was more tanned on one side than it was on the other.
It needed to flip over halfway through.
Exactly. Barbecue roll it.
Barbecue
Right.
roll on the test stand.
Yeah, if you go back and look, they first rolled the rocket out in March, and the conical adapter that connects SLS to Orion, it's called the Launch Vehicle Stage Adapter, and it had not been outside as much as the core stage, and over the spring and summer, it has gotten the same kind of tan now that the core stage does, but it was a much lighter color in the spring.
I can't
And
quite see it there, I don't think, but I think in this view
It's
we may be
right
able
at
to
the
see some.
bottom, yeah.
Yeah, this isn't
there.
the conical section. There you go, Chris.
No, but that is perfect. So the lighter areas of foam are newer applications, and the darker one is probably when they did the acreage sprays when they were putting the foam on when they were putting the foam on back at Michoud in New Orleans, the Michoud assembly facility where the core stage is built. And then, of course, you see the checkerboard, which is the photogrammetry marking
Yep.
for engineering tracking and engineering analysis of how the stages and the booster rockets are separating from one another.
Right. And I think didn't the core stage have some, I think it was during transport, it had some additional telemetry sensors and stuff like that involved, and then they removed those and then refilled it with foam. So some of the spots we
Yes.
see are like where they removed a sensor and then put foam over where the sensor used to be, right?
That's exactly right. And those sensors were primarily, they were technically development flight instrumentation, even though they didn't, even though they were removed and they will not fly with SLS, because
Right.
one of the computer models that they had to validate for SLS was what the vibration and transient loads through the rocket stack was going to be as the crawler hauls it down the crawlerway between the VAB and the pad. And they got all that data on the very first rollout back in March. So when she came back in April, after the first wet dress rehearsal campaigns were complete, they took all of those sensors off and redid the foam before sending her back out to the pad. So you're exactly right. Yep.
Makes good sense. All right. Let's keep on. Are we
Oh,
good on our updates? Go ahead.
one more update. Launch team does confirm that the countdown will resume as planned on time at 7:07 Eastern Daylight Time or 11:07 UTC. So that is when we are expecting the clock to pick up from the T-minus 6 hour, 40-minute and holding mark that it is in right now. This is a planned built-in hold. And the next planned built-in hold after this is T-minus 10 minutes.
Gotcha. All right. So again, folks, Chris was just saying the clock is holding intentionally. It is supposed to be that way right now. It's currently 6:47 local time, and the launch window opens at 2:17 local time. So should have done the math before I opened my mouth, but 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2 minus a half hour, about 7.5 hours from now, if I did the quick finger math correctly there.
Right.
You're correct.
I'm not ashamed.
Once
Yeah, I
we-
just
Yeah, once we pick up, so we have a 30. The last hold is 30 minutes long. So once the clock resumes here, we basically just need to add 30 minutes to the clock to give you kind of an L minus time, at least to the opening of the window.
to the opening of the window. Gotcha. Okay. Hey, real quick, I'm going to grab a couple more super chats saying thank you to some people supporting us here, like James Albert, who says, "Space, let's go." I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce that. It's "let's go," though. We appreciate you, James, for the $20. We've got Bjo RN, Bjorn 482 with some euros says, "Hope to see my baby fly. Thanks for the coverage and greetings from Germany. The European contingent still strongly represented on the stream this morning." Jorn, anybody else want to take a shot at that German name? I'm just going to keep going. Thank you for the support. We've got Bublito says, "Got an empty seat left. I want off this planet." I don't think we have any empty seats today. I think we've got some mannequins.
Yeah, you don't want this ride. You don't.
Yeah.
This ride is only for mannequins. It's not for people because they're not taking enough air to support you for 37, 38 days.
Yes. So even if you were to get off this planet, you would not be in any better situation, I think would be the right way to say that. Let's see. We've got Jimmy J. Looks like a tank watcher here. With a siren needed before a static fire, is a siren sounded before launch? Do we get like a T-10 warning before launch? The sheriff drives around the pad with the siren?
No, they don't do
That's
that.
not a thing.
They have what's called a blast danger area, and there is nobody that's supposed to be out there unless you're talking about like one of the hogs on the wildlife refuge. Those are the only animals or mammals or anything like that that are allowed to go out there now. So yeah, there are no human beings out there unless they're doing it against rules. So we were looking there just quickly at one of the aft core stage to SRB attachments, and I think the reason that they're looking at those is as they fill the liquid hydrogen tank. We heard during the first launch attempt, of course, because liquid hydrogen is so cold, it's only about 40 degrees above absolute zero. The core stage liquid hydrogen tank, which is the one at the bottom of the core stage, it shrinks about 8 inches, and so you can actually see if you were to compare the empty core stage to the full core stage, you would actually see a noticeable difference in these struts in terms of the angle and the way that the core stage sort of sits on those. So I think they're keeping an eye on that. There are some structural requirements about how much liquid oxygen you can put up in the tank on top before you get into liquid hydrogen loading. So that's one of the things that they'll keep an eye on during the loading of the vehicle here.
All right. I was Philip, I got to ask. I've watched too many movies, but when they zoomed in there, it's not C4. It looks like somebody strapped a block of C4 to the bottom of the strut, but is that a thing? Is that part of the flight termination system, or is that white block on the bottom of the strut something different? I don't know if maybe they need to zoom in
I'm
again.
not sure. I do know that the system that releases the umbilicals from the mobile launcher to the vehicle, it does not use pyrotechnics, but the system that separates the boosters from the core stage and the vehicle separation systems do still use pyrotechnics. So those aft struts have explosive bolts in them, and then you have 2 forward separation points up at the top of the boosters. The same thing. Those are explosive bolts, and then you have separation systems up at the core stage to ICPS connection, and then the ICPS to Orion connection too. So they will put weather protection over the entire vehicle. Has weather protection on it, whether it's foam for other reasons or it's paint over cork to keep the cork from absorbing moisture, or it is, I called it goop on Monday, but it's this stuff called room temperature vulcanizer, and it's white, and it's just this goop that they stick in crevices to keep water out of the spacecraft or out of the launch vehicle. So that's what that might be. Is it might be some weather protection to keep water out of instrumentation lines, or the pyrotechnic system itself.
Gotcha. I remember that. What did you say it was called? Room temperature vulcanizer?
Right, or are they? Of course, as NASA calls it RTV because
RTV.
It's an acronym. You have to use the acronym. But yes.
I've used, and I imagine this is probably like space RTV, but I've used RTV for automotive applications, like making a new gasket on your engine or whatever. But I don't actually think I knew that it stood for room temperature vulcanizer. I just called it RTV.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're definitely the final inspection team, or the ICE team, it looks like they're continuing to do the scan of the vehicle here.
Yeah, I'm just leaving it on this camera because I love seeing the PTZ like go up and down and look at different parts of the rocket.
And Alex in the back is still caddying.
Active, right?
Alex is caddying updates for us, and he's told us that flow has resumed on both liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen. So I think liquid hydrogen was already in slow fill, and that's resumed, and now liquid oxygen is also in slow fill. So the chill down, which is the first phase of the loading, is complete, and now there's into slow fill on liquid oxygen. So that's all good news.
Yeah. All right. We are continuing to answer questions here, y'all. We're going to be live and answering questions all the way up until the window opens at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. But we are going to continue grabbing some of your questions. Let's see here. We talked about the orange color. I just want to watch this camera pan around, honestly. Oh, this camera is actually further back. For a second, I thought we were looking at a camera that's in that gray box in front of the lower left engine there. You see that gray box that's sort of looking up at an angle, but this camera's back a little bit, it looks like.
Right. That camera would be good for when we get all the way down to engine start. That will that one up right around the flame hole. But this wouldn't be horrible either. So
yeah,
if we got to see this.
No kidding.
And one thing just to note here. One thing to note here too. What Philip was saying about them being back into liquid oxygen slow fill as well. They are technically ahead of their timeline with fueling. So this is very, very good. They've got a little bit more time than the timeline actually indicates right now.
Excellent. These are things that are continuing to count down towards the launch here. Again, folks, they're going through this process. It's a complicated vehicle. It's the first time that this rocket has been on this pad going all the way through, hopefully further than it got on Monday. These parts of the process, some of these things are the first time they've done this with this actual equipment here. So we are continuing to watch as they count towards that opening in London. Still a long way to go, but we will be here with you. Let's see. Grabbing some more questions here. Are there any cameras that watch Engine 3 bleed? I don't think we have a camera labeled E3 bleed or anything.
That's where I wanted to be though. Is if we were in the launch control center or if we were in a control center, we could probably get a little bit more of a real-time commentary on what's going on. But we will be getting updates from NASA Public Affairs on the NASA TV channel too.
Yeah, and if I recall correctly, that bleed wasn't like a bleed that would go outside into the open air. The bleed was sort of like it goes into a capture area, then goes off to the stack or something like that. It wasn't like you would see a line dumping something off the side of the rocket. It was a contained, a captured bleed.
Right.
That's correct. There's actually they because of how the bleed system works differently from shuttle, and they dump the bleed outboard of the vehicle. There's a 60,000 gallon new liquid hydrogen, basically a
separator.
Not a storage tank, but a separator. Thank you, separator tank, where the liquid hydrogen that is bled out from the bleed system goes there. It boils off from liquid to gas in that separator tank, and then the gas gets flowed to the same hydrogen flare stack that the gaseous hydrogen that's vented directly from the hydrogen tank of SLS goes to as well.
And look at this on the screen right now, just above where it says Kennedy Space. You can see our first atmospheric condensation freezing to the side of that pipe there. Y'all see that?
Right. They do see frost on. This is one of the two liquid oxygen feed lines, or they're also called downcomers. But this feeds the liquid oxygen, which is above you can see the very bottom of the tank, just above this swing arm here, and those run all the way down the side of the liquid hydrogen tank into the engine section to then feed the four engines. So those two lines will then fork into have a Y adapter. They will fork to one of them will fork to two engines, and the other one will fork to the other two.
Excellent. It's very exciting because when we start to see venting and condensation cascading down the side of the rocket seems to come alive. That's how it makes me feel like when we see like vapors cascading off the side and frost forming on the side, the rocket really does seem to come to life. It's like it's ready to go, or it's preparing to go. It's ready to go into space there. So I love to see the vehicle sort of come to life. I've talked with a couple astronauts, and that's how they've sort of described sitting in the shuttle. Things are starting to come to life as they start to go through all the processes, and it's almost like a feeling that the astronauts would get there. Of course, uncrewed mission today, no astronauts on board, hopefully no ride-along bats on board either. but the rocket is coming to life. It's waking up as the sun rises here out on the Space Coast. How are we doing on updates? Do we have any new updates to share here? Should we keep going with some questions?
I think we're still, basically they've gotten back into filling. I think they're still in slow fill on both the liquid oxygen, liquid hydrogen tank, but that's where they should be on the timeline. So things are still things are going well. They had a quick, so they had to stop for a few minutes to take a look at a couple of issues with pressure warnings on both sides, but they've now picked up with the flow again. So that's so things are still going well.
All right, that's what we like to hear. Let's see here. We're just going to continue answering questions.
Sounds good.
This is a good question, and I don't have this answer. I don't know if somebody else on the team may have it. Grant McClellan actually asks, is there any chance that those of us in Australia might see Artemis while in transit? Do we have any viewing maps? I know that the exact trajectory changes minute by minute, so it's really hard to say, oh, here's where it'll pass over Australia at this time. I know
I'm trying to think of, I'm more trying to think of Australia might, I need to look at an exact map, but Australia might actually have a shot of seeing the translunar injection burn of the ICPS. I need to look at a map. That's a very good question, because yes, there might be a part of the world that will be able to see the translunar injection burn. As the ICPS shoots Orion and the ESM onto their transfer trajectory. Give us a few minutes to go try and look at that, because it's going to depend on lighting. Give us a few minutes to go look at that, but that's a very good question. Yeah.
Yeah. And it is really complicated, because the exact trajectory the vehicle needs to follow to go into the correct orbit, or to put Orion into the correct orbit around the moon, changes minute by minute. There's like a massive swing in, I think, the azimuth, right? Like it's going to swing from this degree north to this degree south or something like that. Chris, do you know that off the top of your head?
I do. So opening of the window, the azimuth is 64 degrees. So the vehicle is aligned 180. So if you think of the portion of it, if you Das, can we switch from this engineering cam to one of our cameras at the press site?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's see, because this is a good explanation for it. Yeah.
How's that?
Perfect. So the side of SLS that does not face the tower faces due south. So that's 180 degrees if you're thinking of a compass azimuth. So opening of the window 217 would result in a roll program to 64 degrees, which is a little bit more than, which would, and she would roll 90 degrees to go due east. So she's rolling to 60 to go a little bit east-northeast. That would result in a 37-degree inclination orbit, and then second by second, as you progress from 217 down to 417 local, 1817 to 2017 UTC, that azimuth will decrease down to 120 degrees, which would result in a east-southeast trajectory down toward the Bahamas and a 32-degree inclination orbit. And that has to do, that ever-changing azimuth every single second in the launch window has to do with the changing relative position of the moon to the launch site in the moon's orbit of Earth, the changing relative inclination of the moon to the launch site, and the ever westward drifting translunar injection point to put you onto the proper trajectory.
Right. So it's complicated.
And trust me, it's complicated, and trust me, that was as brief as I could have kept that.
Yeah. To sum it up, it's complicated. Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Again, folks, just answering questions here. I'm actually going to thank a couple super chats really quickly, including Silas the Person. Is this a planned hold? Yes. The clock is not counting right now. That is T minus on the clock. Of course, we're counting towards 2:17 p.m., the opening of the window, but the clock is not moving intentionally. The count should pick up here shortly, but that is a planned hold. Thank you for the support as well, Silas. Let's see here. Trying to find. This is a good question. Go ahead, Philip.
I was just going to say we're expecting the clock to pick up in at 7:07 a.m. So in less than 3 minutes, so 2.5 minutes from now, or thereabouts. But very shortly.
Let's talk about this real quick, and we may be able to see some of this stuff. City Luck Sasquatch asked, awesome channel and keep up the great work. During a crewed launch, how far away do they stage the MRAP evacuation vehicle? If there's astronauts in Orion, how do they get away quickly if they need to?
Yeah. So 2 options would be available depending on when within the countdown we are. So if they are, if we are inside of T-minus 6 minutes in the terminal count, Orion's launch abort system would be activated at that time because that's the point in the count where they would pull the crew access arm back. So Orion would be able to execute a pad abort at that point to save the crew if needed. The other way is just like in shuttle. The plan is that when SLS gets out there for Artemis II, they will string slide wire escape system baskets up to that level of the mobile launch tower, and the same emergency slide wire evacuation system that we have at Pad A for SpaceX will be the same type of system that is used for SLS and for crew. And that would also account for any other personnel on the tower that need to get off very, very quickly prior to the activation of the launch escape system.
All right.
Right, and I think that's where those MRAPs would be staged, and that sounds. I believe that's the way it was in shuttle too.
Yes, indeed.
Are they MRAPs? Like the MRAP is a type of armored vehicle, I think, like a big armored truck. Are they like little tanks?
Armored tanks, yeah.
These things used
They're
to be like a
tanks,
little tank. Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't think they're specifically MRAPs like the actual what an MRAP is. I guess they're like little evacuation tanks. I don't know what a better way there is to say it.
Our armored personnel carriers is the other way I have heard them
Right.
described for
APCs.
the crew vehicles. Yeah.
Gotcha. All right, y'all. We are continuing to watch. I think we're supposed to be coming up on the beginning of the count. Does everything sound like they're counting correctly here? Everything's going well, Philip?
Yes, it does. They were supposed to pick up the clock on schedule, so here in the next few seconds, actually, I think.
Well, if it's going to
And
happen
we're
in the next
watching it.
few seconds, we can all watch it together. I brought
There
one
we
of our the sky cam is now the clock cam. I guess we have to start calling it a different name. But that is the actual clock. They've been saying updates that is supposed to start counting here in a few seconds, but let's see.
There we go.
It did.
There you go.
So
Excellent.
we're right. So we're what is that? We're 7 hours, 9 minutes, 49 seconds from the opening of the window.
Woohoo!
Excellent.
Yes, so we are counting. So the next time we want to see that clock stop is T-minus 10 minutes. For our final planned built-in hold is 30 minutes in duration. So what Philip was saying earlier in the quick math he was just able to do, at this point, add 30 minutes to what you see on the clock, and that is the time to the opening of the launch window at 2:17 p.m. Eastern or 18:17 UTC.
All right, we'll continue watching. There's something happening on the screen right now that makes me very happy. Our on-screen clock in the upper left seems to be less than a second different than the live feed clock there. So
that's nice.
Ooh, and actually, our clock in the upper left is slightly more accurate than the one you're seeing on the big screen.
Oh, what? I mean, I'll take it, but this person who's blocking out the minute there needs to back up a little bit. The clock just started. Come on, guys. Anyways, y'all don't know how hard that is to do, right? And because we're getting a clock feed from NASA, it makes our lives so much easier with getting those clocks to synchronize. But that is a very difficult thing to make happen on the broadcast, and I am happy that they are so close right now.
Yes.
Anywho. Let's see. Looks like our engineering camera friends are zooming around once again, so everybody knows what the clock looks like. Let's see what the rocket looks like up close and personal as we continue the count here towards the launch of SLS. Again, y'all, it's a long way. What do we used to say? It's a long way between I love you and I do. SLS has said that I love you, and the clock is running here, but it's not walking down the aisle yet. Hopefully here, window opening at 2:17 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, we see SLS walking down the orbital aisle, sending Orion on its way to the moon.
What I absolutely love about that analogy, Doss, is that sometimes what the teams use to refer to the moment of solid rocket booster ignition as commit. So SLS doesn't make its final commitment until SLS lives off. And then it has a wedding ring on one of the SRBs, so that works.
It
Like, the
does.
whole analogy works. Yeah.
Right there. There, the black circle
Yep.
around the upper right SRB there, from this perspective, the upper right, that is the wedding ring or the wedding band. And it's so you can tell the difference between the two boosters, right? One has a,
Yep.
Right.
they
You
liked
can
it, apparently.
see-
They put a ring on it, and the other one they
You can
didn't.
see right off the side there, you can see the vehicle assembly building way off in the distance between the booster and one of the lightning
Oh.
towers. So that's, what is that, about a little more than 4 miles away from
Mhm.
pad B.
I
Yep.
did not notice that, Philip. That is the VAB in the background there. Nice.
It helps to have the sun up.
Oh. I'm waving.
geez.
Can you see? Oh, they changed angles. Never mind.
Stand by. There, I'm going to take the overlay off real quick. We've got venting down below the engines.
Right, and that's a good. And we got an update from launch control that the liquid oxygen is now in fast fill, and so that's probably a sign of that to some extent.
Oh,
But those
look
are
at that.
that's.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
I got to geek out. Look at that zoom in on that bolt. That is one of the aft attach bolts between the solid rocket booster and the core stage. Those things have to channel so much stress as that vehicle lifts off, but they are looking for ice buildup on them.
Right.
Is what they're looking for in verifying their overall condition. You see, they did the one on the right. Now they're doing the one on the left.
Right.
As well.
can
Yeah, Philip,
see
what
it-
do you want to say? Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, okay, well, then they just went past it, but you could see a couple of the core stage up-facing cameras for a moment there. Right now, actually, kind of interesting. All of the non-propellant tank sections have vents on them, and right at the bottom, sort of bottom mid right, you can see one of those engine section vents, and that allows the gas. They're pumping these sections full of now gaseous nitrogen to reduce the flammability. And so that's another reason why they don't want anybody out there, is once they start doing that purge switchover from dry air to nitrogen, then that could be that's an asphyxiant, and you don't want anybody out there around that.
And really quickly here, we were just talking about the wedding ring. You can really see the difference between the SRBs. On the right-hand side, the back ring around, or the black ring around the top, right under the pointy nose cone bit, and no ring on the left-hand side. That's so when the boosters separate, they can keep track of them. They know that this one came from this side. They know that that one came from that side. You want them to look exactly the same when you're watching them with a long-range camera. Also, an appearance of the lightning protection system in the background there. Over on the very right-hand side, they have that big fiberglass spirally bit. Looks like a candy cane that doesn't have any red ink on it. I guess you don't put ink on candy canes, whatever. You know what I mean. Food coloring, dye. And you can actually see some of the lightning catenary lines. You see those cables that are connected to the top of it. That's what the lightning actually strikes. That's part of a very complicated and well-engineered system that protects the rocket on the pad from lightning strikes. I think, didn't that system take 3 strikes or 5 strikes or something the other day when that big storm came through?
Yeah, so it took several strikes. I think you're right. I think they said there were 3 like within just a few seconds of each other that struck the system. But they were low energy strikes. So as impressive as it looked visually, they were very, very low energy strikes. They saw one thing in the initial data review that they wanted to go take a little closer look at, but ended up not being anything at all. They didn't have to do anything. The system worked perfectly. But a moment to actually brag about the engineers who designed this system and how much this can actually handle. When they first rolled SLS out for in March, and they were headed for their very first wet dress rehearsal attempt, the strongest lightning strike ever recorded at the Kennedy Space Center struck the catenary system at 39B, and it worked perfectly. Nothing was wrong with SLS.
Oh,
It did it
jeez.
perfectly. So this system can really, really, really handle a lot of energy, and it has worked perfectly. In fact, the sort of average that they've got is it's a 1 in 10,000 year chance that a lightning strike would miss the catenary wires and strike the rocket beneath it, or any of the ground systems beneath it. So very, very good systems.
I don't even know how you do that math. Like, like who came up with the equation?
Yeah.
To describe, once in every 10,000 years, one will this really weird shaped lightning bolt will skip all the wires and hit the rocket. I don't even know how to do that math.
Yeah, and like both the NASA person and the ULA person we talked to, Jose Perez Morales from NASA and Jim Kennedy from ULA, about the Lightning systems at the respective launch pads here, both said the exact same thing independently of one another, that the assessments go to the 1 in 10,000 year probability range.
Is
And I mean, but that's what you want. You want a less than 1% chance over 10,000 years to protect
Oh
your
yeah,
system.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, if I could get 20,000 years or 100,000 years, I'd take that too. But 10,000 years is
I'd
good.
take it too. I think we got to be on the moon for that, right?
Hey, really quickly, I'm seeing a windsock in the lower left-hand corner of this shot. How are the winds? It looks really still and calm right now.
Incredibly still.
No
The
kidding.
flag is not moving. Nothing is. There's no air movement right now.
I'm sure the mosquitoes like that.
Oh
Oh,
my
no.
God, yeah. I've like offed myself to no end here with bug spray.
Raising.
But yes, but the other thing that we're looking for today, because I don't want people to take, oh my gosh, but they said steering winds were what we're going to be in play to blow everything inland today. Yes, the steering winds are up around 20,000 feet, or I think that's like 13, 14 kilometers in altitude. Oh no, it's lower than that, around 8 kilometers or so in altitude. Those are the steering components that we're really looking for today. So ground winds can be very, very calm. Our upper steering current is still a southeasterly flow blowing things inland. So all of that is still in play, even though the ground winds are very, very calm right now.
All right. And again, that's the weather right now. But as energies change right here on the coast, you've got the air masses competing and moving around. So weather right now is interesting. Weather at 217 and beyond is even more important. So we'll continue tracking that.
And one of the latest ones that we had actually that came from with some of the overnight model runs that are still being sort of validated in the early morning model runs are calling for a little bit more drier and more stable air than the official forecast is actually calling for. So fingers crossed.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that should be a good thing.
It should be a good thing. Yes, thank you, Philip.
Yeah.
In English, that means good. Yeah.
In English, like, long story short, that's good. Really quickly, folks, going to say thank you to a couple people supporting the stream here. Jake Moser and Dave Stokes. Go ahead with an update. That's okay.
Hang on. LH2 liquid hydrogen has entered stop flow due to a leak detection in the engine cavity. They reached 8% LH2 load in the core stage before stop fill was initiated. That's new.
That is new.
That's new. That's not the purge can issue that they ran into Monday and on wet dress rehearsal 3. Need them to be a little. Oh, it's on the quick disconnect. So, perfect. So
yeah.
It's on the quick disconnect.
So
our standard troubleshooting procedure at this point, when you have a leak at a quick disconnect, is you stop the flow of the cryogenics. You let the seal and the quick disconnect heat up a little bit, and then you hit it with that cryo again. Because sometimes what happens, even though seals can be torqued and tightened and everything can be right, when you hit it with cryo the first time, sometimes the seal doesn't quite seat itself properly.
Yep.
And letting it warm back up and then hitting it with cryo can sometimes fix it. We saw this exact same thing work Monday with the leak in the purge can area of the liquid hydrogen tail service mast umbilical. So this can work. So don't panic. This is the normal troubleshooting process they go to. So let's see if it works. We should be good to proceed. If not, we'll have to stop and figure something else out. But that is where they are. But that's where they are right now. Standard troubleshooting plan. So at the quick disconnect, nobody panic, basically.
Yeah, this is, you got to remember, folks, the rocket's been out there. They're taking it between sort of temperature extremes. It's pretty hot in Florida during the day. Maybe not surface of the sun hot, but it feels like it sometimes. And they're flowing these cryogenic fluids through, and you have all these seals. Like, you have to be able to disconnect the rocket from the tanks on the ground. So you have these seals, these lines that allow you to pump the cold fluid from the tanks into the rocket. And sometimes when they go through temperature changes, the seals don't seal exactly right. So it is a normal part of the procedure. It doesn't mean that like a hose has popped off and is spewing hydrogen everywhere. It doesn't necessarily mean there's a crack or anything like that. It may just mean that one of those seals hasn't quite sealed all the way, and they do have that's something that they see. I'm going to say regularly on occasion. They know what it is, and this could be what's happened here. It may just be they follow their troubleshooting procedure. They sort of shock it back into reseating or resealing, and it is not meaning that there's anything drastically wrong. Now, there could be something wrong, but here's what you do. You follow the process, you take your steps, you go through what you think you're supposed to do in this case, and you see how the data comes out the other end of that, and that's exactly what the team's going to do right now. See if they can, I guess, bump the flow or whatever you want to call it, and see if that seal firms up. If it was a seal, if the seal firms up, and if those hydrogen levels drop back down to acceptable levels detected inside that engine cavity.
Indeed. And there's a bit of a procedural dance that's now going to happen since they're in stop fill for the liquid hydrogen side, but they're still sort of slow filling liquid oxygen. The liquid oxygen tank itself cannot be more than 15% full if the level of hydrogen in the hydrogen tank is at or below 5%. And this has to do with, as you're loading the two commodities, how the mass distribution over the rocket starts to change as you're filling those tanks. And specifically, it's a mass constraint on the aft attach struts between the solid rocket boosters and the core stage, as to why they have to really balance how much liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen are respectively in the two tanks of the core stage as they go through that full fueling process. So you might hear them not start liquid oxygen fast fill right away. You might see them have to stop liquid oxygen fill at this point, but it just that balance of the fueling process for the core stage that they're going through on that.
Right. You have to remember, folks, a vehicle this big, a structure, a human-made structure this big, even out of the materials that we use, changes shape a little bit.
Yeah.
You heat it up, you cool it down, materials expand and contract as they change temperatures. As you actually go through and you put a lot of weight, you add a lot of mass to one part of the rocket, parts of the rocket can stretch. And so in some cases, it stretches a lot more than you might think. Philip, what was that? The statistic on the deflection there, like down where it attaches, isn't it like measured in inches?
Yeah, those aft struts that we were talking about, you can see them on the camera here. The one on the right is just to the left of the 808 camera overlay, and then you can see the one on the other side. And actually, because we're looking at the backside of the rocket, technically the right booster is on the left and the left booster is on the right. But the liquid hydrogen tank, which is just out of shot above this here in this frame, it contracts about 8 inches, which is a lot. But it's because liquid hydrogen is so cold. It's only about 40 degrees above absolute zero. So it does that to everything. And so the issue that they're having with the quick disconnect, what can happen is the quick disconnect is 8 inches in diameter as well for the liquid hydrogen. And if you get, all it takes, because hydrogen is such a small molecule, is for anywhere along that 360 degree circumference. If you got uneven cooling or uneven heating, you can have, it'll just allow enough of a gap to see hydrogen leak out. And the cavity is basically between the umbilical plate, and then there is a vehicle side plate, and so there's a space between those, and then you have the actual fill and drain lines, which have quick disconnects on them, kind of like when you put gas in your car, that seal that they want to put around the gas tank to keep as much of the fumes out as they can. And in this case, it's more important to keep as much of the hydrogen inside. And so they stop if you get a concentration of 4% hydrogen in that area, and they're flushing it with helium. So if you see a concentration of hydrogen above 4%, they have to stop. And so now what they're doing is they're, as we were saying, they stop flow. They're gonna let that fill and drain quick disconnect, that whole circumference warm up. They're going to try and even the temperatures out, and then chill it down slowly to try and get both sides of that interface to chill down at as close to the same rate as possible. And the idea then is that if they're all at the same temperature, you'll get a much better seal all the way around that circumference, and it hopefully will not leak once they resume flow.
All right, so we are going to continue to stand by and wait for more updates from the team on that. See if they can get that those hydrogen levels back down to where they're expected. But again, this is a normal part of the troubleshooting. It's something you do. It's something they've seen before, and it's something they've developed processes to, I guess, verify if that's actually the issue that's causing those elevated hydrogen levels in that enclosure. But we are going to keep marching on here. 6 hours, or I guess T-minus 6 hours and 22 minutes, and then you add 30 minutes to that, like we've been saying, as we march towards that launch window opening at 2:17 Eastern Daylight Time. I think really quickly we may do a little bit of a handoff here. We're going through a little bit of sort of a marathon baton passing, so we've got a lot of people on the team, but I believe that my buddy Jack Beyer is going to be taking over doing some of the talking here for me. Jack, we got you back on comms?
Hello. Yes, we are passing the space baton. It is an orange core stage shaped baton. You are handing it off to me as we run towards the launch pad.
Nice, an orange
core shape. Yeah, core stage shaped baton. Love it.
All right, Jack, well, I will leave it to you. Jack will be reading your questions and thanking Super Chats here as we continue with our coverage of Artemis I. Jack, take it away.
Indeed. Thanks for getting us started off this morning. We are, the count is clocking. We're ticking down here, which is exactly what we want to see. So yeah, let's jump right into it. Hey, Philip. Hey, Chris. Do you guys feel like answering some questions?
I think so.
All right, let's do it. Let's see here. Space Nut since 1969 is asking, how long will the next flight last? They assume the human crew will not be out for as long as 37 days.
Correct. So part of what this mission is trying to do is to really stress Orion and the European Service Module far beyond what they are actually planned to be used for in terms of duration. So nominal crew flights, like Artemis II, for example, where the crew does not have gateway to go to, is planned to be a 21-day mission. That's sort of the nominal free flight if Orion does not dock to something else that's about along it and the European Service Module are built for. So in order to really verify that Orion and ESM, the European Service Module, are good for that 21-day, 3-week period, they are intentionally making this mission longer. This particular day results in a 37-day mission, which is about 5 days smaller than if we had launched on Monday, and it results in a landing, a splashdown back in the Pacific on October 11th. But yeah, you're exactly right. This is just going to stress Orion and the ESM to absolutely make sure they're ready for a 21-day mission, and they're doing that by doing a 37-day mission. And they also plan when it lands, when it comes back and splashes down in the Pacific. Basically, what they're going to do is, while they still have a requirement to get Orion out of the water within about an hour after a nominal splashdown and end of mission, they're going to leave it in the water for a lot longer, and they're going to leave it there on purpose, again, to really verify that everything on that capsule works the way it is intended, just in case there's a situation like in an abort during launch, or if they had to switch to a ballistic style reentry and come right into the atmosphere and land, and it took a little while longer for recovery crews to get to them. They want to make sure that the capsule can do what it's designed to do. So yeah, this is a big stress test for Orion and the ESM.
That makes sense. Let's see here. Apparently I said the count is clocking, and chat loves it, and I wish I could say that was intentional, like one of my funny things I did, but no, I'm just, apparently I'm go for coffee load, let's put it that way. Caffeine is flowing. Let's see here. We might have answered this one a little bit already. Nick is asking, is SLS fueled through the orange pipe or through the arm? I think they might be thinking of the downcomer there with that orange pipe, so I don't know, Philip, you want to take this one? I'm taking it away from you, Chris. Not yours. It's Philip.
Yep.
Well, I can start, and Chris can correct me. For the core stage, and we were if we could go back to the wide shot again, the propellant actually is loaded from the bottom of the core stage through the engine section and then up into the tanks through those two tail service masts. They're on the other side of the vehicle. Okay, so in the right-hand picture, you can see those two gray, and I think they're about, apologies, I'm using English units. They're about, I think, about 30 feet high. Those two gray tail service masts at right on the top of the mobile launcher deck, but towards the bottom of the vehicle. But that's the one on the left in that shot is the liquid oxygen tail service mast, and the one on the right is liquid hydrogen tail service mast.
Yep, and then for the interim cryogenic propulsion stage, the upper stage of the SLS Block 1, that liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen is indeed loaded through swing arms because there is no propellant connection between the core stage and the ICPS. So the only way to get propellants to the ICPS is through that to it.
Very cool. Once again, everybody, if you have questions, at NASA Spaceflight in chat, and we'll see your question pop up, and we'll be able to answer it. Let's see here. So many members coming in. Thank you, all of our new members. Thank you, all of our existing members. We were talking about a little bit earlier, the way that we get these sweet engineering feeds that you're looking at right now, this crazy, surreal view of this arm and the blue sky. How cool is that? The whole reason we could do that is because we were able to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on equipment thanks to everybody's support. So, and I literally mean thousands and thousands of dollars. And then Michael and DOS put that all together, and it's working. And hooray, because holy cow, what a surreal view. I mean, surreal is a word that gets thrown around a lot, but this just looks absolutely surreal. How cool. So thank you, Bruno, for becoming a Capcom member. Also, Tom Brown for becoming a Capcom member. Both of you get Discord access. That's one of the perks for our membership program. If you sign up for the membership program, it's like a monthly level of support, whatever you're comfortable with. But at Capcom level and above, that is sort of like the best level, if you ask me. Just because. Oh, maybe not hearing me.
Well, if I sound okay, maybe
we can hear you, Jack. You're good.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I got startled there for a second. So yeah, thank you to all of our members. We're getting so many come in, and it's so cool. Tom Curtis, Red Team member. We got Melancholy at a Pad Rat. We got Stuart at a Pad Rat membership level. A Thumbless Man, that sounds tough, at a Red Team. All the different levels, you get different perks. There's like members only chat emoji. There's behind the scenes stuff like we were talking about earlier, where I almost got left behind at the pad at 39B. So yeah, thank you so much to all of our new members. Holy cow, Cat Herder Man, or Cat Herder Cam, gifted 20 Red Team memberships. That is awesome, because not everybody might be willing to sign up for the membership program, but what this whole gifting thing allows people that might not sign up on their own to experience the membership program, and hopefully they can see all the stuff that we're doing. That's for our viewers and appreciators and supporters. Paladin becoming a launch director. That is awesome. Thank you so much, Paladin. Alex becoming a Pad Rat member. Thank you so much. Blackhawk gifting 5 Red Team memberships. So much support from y'all. Thank you so much. It's a historic day. We hope we see a historic launch today, and it's a good day. It's a really good day. So thank you, everybody, for helping us do what we do, because we, of course, love doing it. Let's see here. Let's go with some more questions. How about, do we have an update, current update, or are we still waiting for the next blurb here?
Yeah, well, the big update is going to come in a few minutes, but basically what's happening right now is the liquid hydrogen teams are briefing the launch director on what they have seen so far. So we'll be standing by for the outcome of that briefing, which we should get here as soon as they are done briefing Charlie Blackwell Thompson and her teams. So that is where we currently stand right now. But you can see the nice little graphic of where we are in terms of our liquid oxygen there in the core stage, the upper tank of the core stage. So at 6 hours, 13 minutes and counting, we are standing by for exactly what that update is. And we'll have that in a few more minutes. So let's keep taking some questions, Jack.
All right, and the crowd continues to chant, "Moon, moon, moon." Let's see here. Jack Bartlett is asking, good name there, Jack, is asking about the launch abort system. Will it activate if there's any issues on this launch, or what's the deal there?
Yeah, great question. For Artemis 1, no, the launch abort system is inert in terms of its ability to abort pull Orion away from the top of the SLS stack. This was decided a long time ago because there's no crew on Artemis 1. It's actually just cheaper if you were to have a failure in the first 3.5 minutes of flight to sacrifice Orion and rebuild the avionics and the chairs and the other stuff that you were going to pull out of it for Artemis 2. Because obviously, if we were to have a launch failure within the first minute, if we were to have a launch failure today, Artemis 2 is not going to be what it is currently planned for, right? That the whole sequencing would have to shift around on that one. So no, if there were to be a failure in the first 3.5 minutes of flight, there are no abort options for the Orion. Now, the part of the launch escape system or launch abort system that is active are the motors that will jettison the launch abort system as is normally planned on nominal launch operations. That comes about 3 minutes and 30 seconds into the flight. Once the LAS, launch abort system, is jettisoned during a nominal ascent, for today, Orion then has abort options after that point, but not for the first 3.5 minutes of flight.
Got it.
Right, and so the launch abort system up at the top here, where you can see where the flag is, that's the essentially the fairing for the crew module of Orion, and then just below it, where the NASA Worm and ESA logos are the fairing panels for the service module, and so those will be jettisoned in relatively rapid sequence. I think within about 10 seconds of each other at that sort of 3.5 minutes into flight. So in fact, actually the service module panels will be jettisoned first, and then the launch abort system will be jettisoned right after that. But that's basically what will allow Orion then to do a separation abort and get away from the rocket if that were to be necessary.
Got it. Yeah, it's kind of wild because with so many things, really with all rockets, but definitely with SLS, it's hard to have a sense of scale. And when you are kind of up close to it, it's just absolutely maniacally big. However, next to the vehicle assembly building, as you're driving in and out of the press site area, they have a one of those launch abort system motors, or it's a mock-up or something, but it's laying like right there next to the road, kind of on display, and it looks positively tiny. Just a tiny little stick guy, which kind of is like, counterintuitive. I've sort of expected it to be bigger in my head, and then you drive right past it, and you're like, oh, that's really not that big. But I guess if it's filled with solid propellant, it can still get the job done, right?
Yep. If they have to use the real one, beginning with Artemis 2, that'll put out 400,000 pounds of thrust in. I think it expends itself within a couple of seconds.
Yeah, I've seen some photos of, is it Northrop, or either way, of that engine being tested, and it's quite a interesting sight. I hesitate to say beautiful. I was going to say beautiful, but I suppose if you see it in any other
only
context,
in tests, right?
Yeah,
you only want
exactly.
to see it. It's beautiful in tests.
Yes, precisely. Thank you.
And Jack, like you talked about the sheer scale of SLS and everything like that, but I mean, let's put this into perspective with the other rocket it has to work with for the lunar lander and everything, right? Starship is 9 meters in diameter for the boosters and the ship. The SLS core stage is 8.4 meters in diameter. So the core stage itself is just barely skinnier than Starship and the boosters. And when you add the 3.3 meter diameter solid rocket motors that are on either side of that thing, this is wider at its base where it sits on the launch pad than Starship is.
Yeah, it's a wide boy.
If you think of that for scale, it is a wide.
So it's a wide,
exactly
it's a wide
right.
orange boy. I promise I'm drinking more coffee. I can be serious. Serious face. Let's see here. Joshua is saying, can you explain why there was a 5-day wait between launch attempts, but a scrub today would only mean a 2-day wait? I think that owes to teams wanting to sort of check over the data and come up with a flight rationale versus, I'm assuming a 2-day wait would be if it scrubs today due to, say, weather. and not an issue with the vehicle. If there's an issue with the vehicle today, who knows? It's anybody's guess what happens at that point. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah,
Well,
Philip, you want to take that one?
well, actually, I'll throw it to you because we got
Okay.
the late update, but
Oh, okay.
it was probably a combination of those things, Jack. But they actually did not have launch opportunities on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday because of an Orion eclipse constraint, which they knew going into this. The window runs, the entire launch window runs from August 23rd through September 6th, so that would be next Tuesday. But they knew going into this that they could not launch on August 30th, August 31st, and September 1st because at some point in the mission, Orion would be shaded from sunlight for more than 90 minutes, and that is a requirement that they won't violate. Now, Chris heard something at the launch site there that in an underperformance case that actually ruled out Monday, I believe, or no, Sunday, tomorrow.
Sunday. Yeah,
right.
yeah. So that was a sort of interesting. Exactly picking up on what you were saying there. So from today going forward, we've obviously started tanking SLS today, so we'll have to see. We'll have to see the outcome of this briefing of what the liquid hydrogen teams are briefing Launch Director Charlie Blackwell Thompson on the leak that they saw in the engine cavity there at the quick disconnect. But in general, tomorrow is not an option at all because if there were to be an underperformance on the ICPS, we do not expect an underperformance on the ICPS. We expect full performance. But just in case there was an underperformance on the ICPS, it would then leave Orion in that unacceptable eclipse condition for more than 90 minutes of shadow in an underperformance situation on the ICPS. So because of that, they now ruled out Sunday the 4th as a potential launch attempt. But because we started fueling today, it kind of makes Sunday a moot point.
Sounds like we lost Chris for a second there. Yeah, we're working on getting that back. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Jack. Can you hear me?
Yes, Chris. I'm not sure what's going on with Chris's setup, but he's troubleshooting that right now.
Yeah.
It might have honestly just been an internet hiccup because now it's green. It was red and it went green, so that was just an internet hiccup. My apologies for that. But yeah, basically Sunday's out. Monday's the next opportunity. If we should scrub today for weather, if it's a technical reason, it gets a little more complicated because it totally depends on what the technical reason was and how quickly it will be to fix. But then there is technically Tuesday the 6th out there. It's a very short window. It's only like 27 minutes long on or something like that on Tuesday the 6th, but that is technically available to them if they should need it. But what we hope for is a very happy empty launch pad at 4:17 today.
That's what we hope for. Let's see what's up here next. We sort of touched on part of it, like tangentially on this a little bit earlier. Psycove1 is asking, can you confirm the flight duration has been reduced from 42 to 37 days?
Yes, but I wouldn't say the flight duration was reduced. This is our ever so wonderful its orbital mechanics. So basically, the distant retrograde orbit trying to hit today in this window and today basically results in a mission that's anywhere between 35 to 43 days in length. And that literally just depends on what day we get off the ground based on orbital mechanics. So on Monday, it would have been a 42-day mission. Today, it's a 37-day mission. If we end up on Monday, I think it's back to 41 on that particular day. So they're all long class missions. So a 5-day difference doesn't do anything appreciably different in terms of the stress testing for Orion and the ESM that they need to do as part of the Artemis I flight.
Right, and the reason that the duration is moving around is because there's a requirement that for this mission that Orion that its entry, descent, and splashdown occurs during daylight, and so for the two launch attempts that we made, so back on Monday and today, the return date is very similar. I think it might have changed from October 10th to October 11th, but even though we're launching 5 days, or hopefully launching 5 days later, the return splashdown date is essentially almost the same. So that's the reason why. That's the reason why the duration changes around, and then basically the idea is they will stay in the distant retrograde orbit to align with that, essentially that deorbit burn that they're going to make to come back to Earth, and they'll do that when at the right point in the orbit to line up for a particular splashdown date.
Got it. Let's see here. Sounds like we got another update coming in, so as soon as we get that solidified, we will relay it to you. But let's quickly answer a question while we wait for that update to solidify there. Desiree is asking, what happened to the fuel previously loaded after they scrubbed the prior launch attempt? I believe the hydrogen fillip was sort of vented into it's like a pond, right?
Well, they actually drain as much as they can from both stages. They drain the liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen as much as they can. They reclaim that, and they push that or pump that back from the rocket back into these spheres that you can see on. Well, not actually. We're looking at the two hydrogen spheres. One of them is new and is not ready to be used yet, but and the liquid oxygen sphere is off to the left in this out of view in this case. But then, yeah, there is. During the countdown, some of the hydrogen and some of the oxygen can't be reclaimed. It boils off from liquid to gas, and it is ducted either out to the flare stack, and we can kind of see a little bit. It's hard to see, but you can see a little bit of the hydrogen flare stack off to the right of the rightmost lightning tower there. That's the hydrogen flare stack, and then there is an oxygen burn pond, or not burn pond. It's just a pond, and they're allowed to just like with the engines are venting gaseous oxygen out into the air. That gaseous oxygen is allowed to just warm up in this pond. It's basically kind of to the left of the launch pad here where the vehicle is on the sort of in the ground on the infield around the pad.
Got it. Cool. Do we have that update? Okay, looks like
yeah. I think PAO misspoke. I think they just missed a word. So they were talking about an engine cavity, and what I think they mean is the engines, the tail service mast umbilical is connected to the engine section of the core stage, and we were talking about this space between the two plates where the lines run, and there is a cavity there, and you can't really see it here. It's on the tail service mast umbilicals are on the opposite side of the mobile launcher from this. But anyway, that's where so you can see them in the right hand picture. They are those gray masts at the bottom of the rocket there, to the left of the core stage in that shot on the right hand picture. But yeah, there's an area, there's a space between them where the lines run, electrical lines too, but the main ones are these propellant lines. And so if there's anything leaking from the quick disconnects, then it leaks into that cavity, and they have a leak detection sensor in that space that to measure that. So this leak wasn't inside the engine section, and a leak inside the engine section would probably be bad news. And we haven't seen anything like that in all of these, even any of the wet dress rehearsal attempts or the tanking that we did on Monday or today. So hopefully he meant that it's just this. It's the quick disconnect, and it's the tail service mast umbilical cavity, the cavity between the plates. So.
And it also sounds too like they're going to do they're going to do the temperature management manually instead of letting the
Right.
systems automatically do it. And this also worked in their favor on Monday when they removed the automatic chill down sequence and did it manually, and they were able to get that seal on the purge can to reseat properly, and to do it also on that vent valve that they were talking about that warmed up as well. So hopefully switching over to manual is a very good thing. Here comes the NASA helicopter, which always makes it sound like launch day.
Right.
Which is always cool. But yeah, that's the only other thing that I had to add to that, Philip. Yeah.
They're just gonna and then basically they're gonna more slowly flow liquid hydrogen across this fill and drain line, because you've got, again, the quick disconnect is basically where the fuel thing plugs into the core stage, and so that circumference has to seal very tightly. So they're gonna more slowly chill that down, so that it seals, and then assuming that works, then they can increase the flow again to fill up the liquid hydrogen tank. So we'll be standing by here. We'll have it should be a few minutes though, but we will be standing by to get another update here pretty soon.
Standing by indeed. Until then, we will keep answering your questions. If you have any questions, at NASA Spaceflight in chat, so we can see those questions pop up. Let's see here. Where did that one go? Oh, I had a really good one. Oh, here we go. Johan is asking, how is the weather holding? Prognos? Although I'm not quite sure if that's a proper use of, is prognos a word? Anyways, I'm wondering, sitting here looking out at the horizon, we of course have many hours. What is it? Like almost 6.5 hours to launch, but there's a lot of clouds, and NASA is going to want to be able to see this thing as it ascends through the atmosphere, because it's a test flight, and it's kind of important for data purposes. Just from a cloud standpoint, how are we feeling right now? And then in a broader weather sense, Chris, I'm going to throw it to you.
So I'll start with the second part of that. Broad weather sense, things are looking very, very good. The official forecast called for between a 60 to 80% chance of acceptable weather conditions. 60% at the opening, 80% toward the end. Overnight models and morning models have sort of shown a little drier setup in the afternoon, obviously thought, so that could work to the benefit.
Sounds like we lost Chris. We lost you again. It became robot-y, and then we dropped you. But maybe it's probably just another Starlink handover, and we'll get you back here shortly. Let's see here. Give it a try now. Or are you back? All right, hang on just a second.
It did sound like the weather was trending better, and we should probably get. We didn't really get into it on Monday because we were dealing with technical issues, and there's still a little bit of that going on right at the moment. But hopefully, after they get these straightened out, maybe in the next couple of hours, we'll get a weather update from the launch weather officer.
Yeah, hopefully. Let's see here. All right, well, speaking of Chris G having a little bit of robotiness, by sheer coincidence, we are tapping in Thomas to jump in on comms. Thomas is sitting behind me. He's been patiently waiting to jump onto comms and give Chris a break. So thank you, Chris, for handling the start of the broadcast there. And Thomas, how are you feeling? How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing good. Thanks, Jack. Thanks again, Chris, for starting us off. Of course, we got many hours of live coverage to go, but the countdown clocks are under 6 hours. And like you said, we're a little over 6.5 hours to actually getting to a T0, at least at the opening of the window. But excited to get some more updates as fueling progresses and we get closer to the liftoff of Artemis I. Very exciting.
Exciting is precisely the correct word for what we're witnessing today. It's the very first launch of an all-new rocket. Yes, it's shuttle-derived, but like the guys were talking about earlier on the stream, it really needs, you need to think about this as a entirely new vehicle. It's sort of like you're in Kerbal Space. Okay, I'm going to use Kerbal Space Program. I know it's not representative of reality. It's a video game, okay, but it's sort of like It's sort of like in Kerbal Space Program if you use all the same parts to make a different rocket. It's not to say that rocket is going to fly the same as the original one. In fact, you might do what happens to me so often is you get to around max Q and you just start tumbling through the Kerbin atmosphere because you did not design things properly. But hey, that's why it's okay. It's a video game. But I digress. Hopefully the weather is going to cooperate today. Certainly, all indications thus far are that it will, but we'll just have to wait and see, I suppose. Thomas, if you see any of these questions that sort of, grabs your eye, feel free to add it to the queue or jump into it here shortly. But while you do that, I am going to. Oh, that's not the WB-57 above us, is it? I think the WB-57 might be above us. Either way, there is some aircraft above us right now, which is interesting, given that
Checking, Jack. Hold on.
Yay, thank you for checking. In the meantime, I will thank Logan for becoming a Capcom member. Don't forget, at Capcom level and above, you get Discord access. So also Bruno at Capcom, Jeremy at Capcom, KJ, also a Capcom member. Holy cow, that's a lot of members. Thank you so much. Matthias92 at Capcom, Ken Bond as well. We really hope you guys enjoy the perks that we put up on the channel, all the behind-the-scenes stuff. And we hope you enjoy the Discord. I think Discord's a really great place. We have an absolutely amazing community in the Discord. We've got a gaming channel where you can witness my horrible Kerbal creations and everyone else's. Also, their good Kerbal creations. We've got a sports ball channel. We've got all kinds of awesome little niche channels in the Discord. If you're not a Discord person, maybe consider becoming one because oh my gosh, it's fun. Brad Smith at Capcom membership. Let's see, Lionel at Red Team, also Ship 84. Maybe getting a little ahead of us there with Ship 84. Matish at Padrat. So many members, and once again, thank you to all of our members. Chopper, Andrew. Let's see, Nudgeus. So awesome to see all y'all coming out with all of the support for what we're doing, and we've pulled out all the stops, as you can see by the camera views you're looking at in this moment. We have pulled out all the stops. There are no more stops, and resultingly, our depth of field is extremely shallow. Sorry, I had to do a camera joke. Let's see here. Here's one. Tony Jepson is asking, because tanking has started, does this mean the minimum recycle time if they scrub is 48 hours? Philip, what's the deal there?
It depends. We're still relatively early in the liquid hydrogen load, and we haven't started the all important LH2 bleed. But yeah, once you get past a certain point, then you run out of you use so much of the liquid hydrogen in the sphere that you can't replenish it within a 24-hour time frame. So, and that's why we were mentioning that there are 2 hydrogen spheres out at Pad 39B now. They are bringing the second one online, and once they have that, they'll have that for Artemis II. Once they have that available, they will be able to perform 3 launch attempts back to back 24 hours apart. They at least would have the capability to do that. And if it was weather, now there are other things like, again, you might have the launch team might get kind of tired, but they would have the capability of doing 2 24-hour recycles and 3 launch attempts within 3 days. So, but right now they only have they basically need a day in between attempts to replenish the liquid hydrogen in the sphere to do another tanking.
Got it. All right. So that is how that works. Good question from Tony there. Don't forget to keep throwing your questions into chat. I'm starting to run low here, so I'm going to start looking for more questions here shortly. So now's your chance. I'm not sure what this one is about. WW2 Kerbal is saying, Das, can you gift EJSA a wake-up call? Das will have to do that or not do that, depending on if that's a good idea or a bad idea. I'm not quite sure what's going on there. But I figured I'd say it out loud so Das can hear me. Crab Raves music is... We did the gallons of fuel one. I Love Launches is asking, does the ICPS decouple a few seconds after the TLI burn? What is that sequence like?
It's shortly after that. Let me go ahead and let's go ahead and pull that up. So the translunar injection burn, it's a long burn. It's for ICPS, there's only supposed to be 2 burns today. So there's a perigee raise burn about 50 minutes after launch, which is only maybe 20 seconds long. But then the TLI burn is 18 minutes long, and that would be it's about 90 minutes after liftoff. And then Orion would separate from ICPS about a half hour later. So half hour after the start of the burn. So I guess that's about 12 minutes, give or take. Let's see, would it be maybe 10 minutes after the TLI burn is complete, Orion would separate from the ICPS.
Got it. All right. Well, thank you, Philip, for that.
And I believe that's also followed up by a disposal burn. And I don't know if we've gotten into this question yet, but Philip, that ICPS will actually have another burn post Orion separation, correct?
Yeah, although I'm not sure it's going to use the main engine at that point. It might just be using the attitude control system, which is just hydrazine. But yeah, and in fact, actually, what happens when Orion separates from ICPS is that separation system uses springs, and I think it creates a separation of about, and I'm using, again, I apologize, it's using English units again, but it's a few feet per second of a separation rate. So it'll push, Orion will go, it'll give Orion a couple of feet per second one direction, and ICPS will go the other way, of course. And then about a little bit more than a minute after they separate, then Orion will make a short burn of its auxiliary thrusters to open up a little bit more of a separation rate. And then, so yeah, kind of simultaneously with that, actually, I'm kind of, in the press kit, they refer to this upper stage separation burn. That actually sounds more like the Orion's going to make that burn. And then this disposal burn that's now like another 90 minutes after the separation would be, or it would be it could be an attitude control system burn. And then, again, we got a question earlier. Might you be able to see Artemis I on the way to the moon? If they vent the ICPS tanks, that might also be, depending on the lighting from the sun, you might also be able to see something like that, because that might create a larger sort of cloud around the stage that you might be able to see on the way, because the stage is also going on a lunar flyby trajectory, except the stage is going to use that to be slingshot into a solar orbit for a heliocentric disposal.
Nice. I do sort of hope that is visible. I always love to see, like, online, whenever there's like a disposal burn or a passivation of a second stage, and you get like a weird like spiral in the night sky, and everyone freaks out and thinks it's aliens, and it's not aliens. It's just rocket companies being responsible for their trash. But it's always a treat to see. Looks like they're still working on that hydrogen issue per Daryl. Thank you, Alex, for that update in the background there. Gosh, this is just so cool to see this view. I know I've said it like a number of times already, but just to get this level of detail on the aft section of the vehicle there, to see the 4 RS-25s and to see the 2 SRBs and even the little hold down clampy things with the numbers and the photogrammetry markers on them, just how cool is that? Let's see here. Oh, and you can even see some venting on that right side RS-25. Philip, do we know what number engines are we looking at right now? Like, is that back left one number 1, or is that 4, or are you able to tell?
Yeah, that's this is sort of the backside of the vehicle, and so the engine on the left is everybody's favorite engine 3, and the one on the right is engine 2, and then in the background, I believe that's, let me double check. I believe that's engine 4.
Got it.
So in the background behind engine 3.
And then engine 1 we can't really see from this
right
angle.
Is basically right behind engine 2 in this view.
Got it. All right, very cool. So engine 2 is doing its thing and venting
Right.
happily. I bet
They
engine
all
3
should
is
be.
as well. Yeah, we just have the
Yeah.
best view on 2 at this angle. But
Right.
super duper extra cool. Let's see here. Thomas, did you see any questions that piqued your interest? All right, let's see here. Here's kind of a less technical, more philosophical question, if you'll forgive me for a moment. Decade is saying, usually when you make a wish, when you blow out a candle, what is your wish when this candle lights up? I would just say my wish and my hope is that this is the sort of thing that becomes the start of something that's commonplace. Going to the moon shouldn't be that special. At this point, it's 2022. I want my flying car, darn it. But really, I just want my moon colony. Thomas, what's your wish when they light this candle? And then Philip, we'll do you next.
My immediate wish is for, of course, a successful test flight. Definitely want to see this rocket that's been so many years in the making, so much time, and so many people have worked on this vehicle that you definitely want to see it fly successfully, and you want to see all that hard work pay off, and you want to see that start to pave the way towards, like you said, a more sustainable human presence on the moon, which is all what this is about. The ability to send large numbers of people and large amounts of cargo to the moon, and then that plan's going to evolve to more sustainable efforts down the line as well. But it all starts with SLS and Orion and the current gateway architecture and the human landing system. And this is, we've talked about how the capstone mission was the first Artemis launch, technically, depending on how you count it. And that mission's doing a lot of really good work on its way to the moon. And you're going to be seeing things like Starship test flights that'll factor into that as well. But all things considered, this is probably the biggest step so far in making that constant human presence around the moon a reality, and that's what I'm most excited about.
Indeed, and as you were talking, we were watching this engineering camera, sort of looking around. It almost looked like there was a crack or something there. A little tiny little guy. It's neat to see them checking out the vehicle with this camera angle, and obviously we will stay posted and keep you guys updated as to what's going on with the vehicle as we hear anything. Philip, what is your wish as they light this candle? And I think we're going to let you tap out.
I mean, basically what Thomas was saying, that we have a safe and successful launch. Certainly SLS, the SLS basically is center stage for the first 2 or 3 hours of the mission, and so we're hoping that the core stage and the boosters work for 2+ minutes, and the core stage works for 8+ minutes, and then ICPS takes Orion to the moon.
Indeed. All right. Well, thank you, Philip, so much for all of your insight. I know we're going to have you back in a little bit, but we will give you a little break here because, again, this is going to be a marathon stream. We've got just around 6 hours and 9 minutes or so, give or take, until the opening of the 2-hour launch window. So, Philip,
right.
go get some milk tea and soothe your voice and your throat there, and we will get you back here for all of your amazing insight soonish.
All right, I won't be far. I won't be long.
All right,
I'll see you guys in a little bit.
I couldn't decide whether to say soonish or shortly, and so it turned into a blur of words. But anyways,
all right. See you in a little bit, Jack.
Farewell.
Right.
Now we've got the camera zooming in on the struts that attach the SRB to the core stage. How cool is that? Let's see here.
Really quick, if I can just jump in on that crack that we saw a little bit earlier ago. Just worth mentioning that a vast majority of the time, those are very non-issues. I mean, when you cryo load any vehicle, that thermally stresses the vehicle a lot. And the whole purpose of that foam is to help take a lot of the strain from that. And so they'll look at the crack, obviously, that's why the cameras are there, and they'll make sure that it's not in a very problematic place, or if it's too big or growing too rapidly. But it could also just be something that's relatively expected. They'll make sure, and we'll expect to hear something from, the PAO on updates and things like that if it's actually something that they need to address. But for now, it's actually a pretty safe assumption to say that it's not going to be a big deal and shouldn't affect anything.
It might not even be a crack. It might just be some frost on there. But I remember from the last attempt, as we were talking about all of this, I believe Philip said that the whole entire vehicle shrinks, or the core stage shrinks 8 inches while they load the cryogenics into it, just because of the nature of them being so cold. So you got to figure that sort of stresses on the vehicle and on the spray on foam there. That's not nothing, right? So it's surely something they thought of and designed it into the vehicle, and definitely not trying to scare people or freak anybody out or anything like that. Let's see here. Oh, we have a new voice though to replace Philip to give him his break. Alex, are you there?
I was about to break in here.
No, I'll intro you. You don't got to worry about breaking in. Although,
Yeah.
I do hope that they break in this stage with some cryogenics. I don't know. That was a bad segue.
That was a
Haha.
stretch, Jack. That was a stretch.
See, you know the way that I was thinking of breaking in? You were saying, oh, these camera views are so cool. I was going to say, well, you know what's cool? The liquid hydrogen that is not flowing into the vehicle right now. Apparently,
Nice.
they have resumed manually that flow of liquid hydrogen into the core stage. They're keeping an eye on the leak rates, see, the concentrations are within checks of the established limits. So we'll see. But you can
Excellent.
see there we're at 3% liquid hydrogen capacity right now.
Yeah, so like 20 minutes or 20 minutes or so ago, they started the flow of hydrogen back into the core stage, right?
Yep, you're right. About 20 minutes ago, they started the load again. This is apparently a manual load that they are kind of throttling manually, so that they are able to check those leak rates on the umbilical tail service mast. But one thing to point out, though, under their sort of nominal timeline when no delays are happening. They were previously scheduled to begin the engine bleed kickstart sequence at about 8 a.m. Eastern time on the dot, more or less. But we are 10 minutes past that, and so we're obviously under a delay here because they haven't started that. But they had brought that from the previous timeline about an hour back, just to be able to cool down the engines earlier. And it's kind of interesting to see that even though they brought that a whole hour forward, they still had this issue with the liquid hydrogen loading. So they are now with that delay anyways.
Makes
Yeah,
sense.
so worth mentioning that since they brought that forward, the delay that will prevent them from getting into that kickstart right away is probably not grounds for even a new T0 yet because it's still earlier than it was in the original countdown. And of course, you can also just add that the whole moving that forward was a result to try to mitigate and give the engines more time to get down to temperature, which in reality turns out the primary issue was in fact a sensor, not the fact that the engine wasn't actually cold enough. So all things considered, not something that we would expect to immediately affect the countdown.
Yeah.
Makes
Right now,
sense.
I'm kind of listening to an update from Daryl. He mentions that the aft strut constraint is not already in place because the LH2 tank is now over 5%. So that means they have resumed sort of like full fast flow on the liquid hydrogen tank, just to be able to. I believe these graphics are indicating a little bit that they are proceeding into that 5% on the liquid hydrogen, so the liquid oxygen can proceed with a full flow, the full fast flow of the liquid oxygen into the tank, just because of that. Because they, as Philip mentioned before, one of the previous updates was that because of these aft strut constraint, they had this issue where if they loaded too much liquid oxygen, then that meant the balances of the weights on the struts and things like that on the struts that join the SRBs to the core stage. That will mean they will have different loads, so they don't want that kind of stress on the vehicle. So they had to throttle down a little bit the loading of the liquid oxygen into the vehicle, but now they are throttling up again, so that they are able to compensate for that, since that requirement is just now met. Like they are approaching that 5% fill on the liquid hydrogen, so they are not with that constraint anymore.
Yep, that is what we want to see. We definitely don't want to see I guess fans of this channel are probably aware of Starship and its various testing and prototypes, and we don't want to see an issue where they load too much into the top tank and do a little sort of a crumple pop like SN3. I think is that even in our intro, or is that SN1? I forget.
It was the original clip at the end where it was like "Yikes, you beck and gur." That used to be the original like clip at the end, but they swapped it for the SN10 thing. So I don't think it's in the intro anymore. But
It used to be
the
SN1,
OG NSF
then
fans will know.
SN3. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that is why they're loading things in the way that they are. Is you need to carefully balance out how much weight is in each tank. Not even necessarily for a crumple pop situation, but like you were saying, Alex, for those struts. I'm gonna go through some super chats really quick, just because we're getting like some of these are like 2 hours old, and I feel
Keep it
like
coming.
we need to show people appreciation for the support. I'll get through them quickly, and we will get back to your viewer questions here. So let me just really quickly say thank you, Christina, for the support. Thank you, Smooth Juice, for the support. Thank you, Paul Harris, for becoming a Padrat member. Rich, for becoming a Padrat member. Musical Wolves, thank you for the support. They say when bacon cam, and I lol. Tan May, thank you for becoming a Padrat member. Alf T, thank you. Stuart, thank you for becoming a Padrat member. Rich, thank you for the support. Rich is asking if fuel can be recovered when and if there's a scrum. I think we kind of talked about that a little bit earlier.
Just to recap, yeah, all of the liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen is pumped back into the tanks and can be reused. I guess reused is the right word. They can drain that right back into the tanks, and this came up in the conversation for a recycle purpose. They don't have to like restock the entire tank farm because they do get the vast majority of that back into the storage tanks. So totally able to do that. Yep.
Cool. Jay Player, thank you for the support. Let's see. Daryl, thank you for the support. They said they became a Padrat last week and they're enjoying all this stuff. Awesome. Richard, thank you for the support. Becoming a launch director member. Wow. Thank you so much, Richard. That is one of the higher levels of our membership program. You get your name at the end of every weekly NASA Spaceflight Live episode. So thank you for that. And you get all the other sweet perks that we have as well. So we're going to be hard pressed to keep up with these, especially if we get behind. So I do want to keep answering your questions at NASA Spaceflight in chat with your questions, and we will get to them here shortly. But just really quickly, James Juries, thank you for the support. With a shuttle joke there for Chris. Bakudan, thank you for the support. Multiple times there. Let's see here. Lionel, thank you. Wheelie98, thank you. Grix70, thank you. They say, are they going first to orbit and then later for TLI, or straight to the moon? If the latter, why is the launch window so narrow? They're going to do a TLI. They go into a safe orbit first, then they do a TLI after that. Is that right, Thomas?
Yes, it is, and we'll just a little bit more detail. The core stage actually targets a very high apogee. If you've ever tried to build the SLS and Kerbal Space Program, see, Jack did this earlier, so I'm allowed to do it too. You can basically get the entire core stage into orbit pretty easily, and that's because the core stage is basically a huge sustainer stage for hydrogen and liquid oxygen powered engines. Very efficient, very powerful, tons of fuel on board. So there's a lot of energy in that stage. So in order to make sure that the core stage re-enters properly, on that first orbit, it targets a very high apogee, or the highest point in the orbit is pretty high up into space, while the core stage perigee will still allow it to re-enter on that first orbit in a nice safe spot out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. The ICBS does a very brief burn at the top of that orbit to enter a stable orbit so that it doesn't, of course, re-enter with Orion on board. And then once it gets back to the lowest point of that orbit, that is where it does the translunar injection, or TLI burn. So it does sit in that lower orbit for a while. It's about 90 minutes or so. And in that orbit, they also are doing a lot of checkouts. They're deploying the solar panels on Orion, which are, yes, they are deployed before the final ICBS burns. And checking out various other comm systems and things like that on Orion and ICBS. And they can always abort the TLI burn should that be necessary. Of course, we hope it isn't. And that would result in basically a very different test flight. But all things being nominal, there is that parking orbit for a while. And targeting that high apogee gives the ICBS and Orion stack a little bit more energy, so the TLI burn can be a little bit shorter.
That makes sense. And there's the graphic again with the update on where we're at with filling up this vehicle. That is what we want to see. Steady progression here. Musical Wolves, thank you. And Duranov Oliver, thank you for the support. Peter Lyle, thank you for the support. Let's see. Wild Taco, thank you so much. Chris Lundgren, thank you. Matej, I'm sorry about butchering your name. Min Soo Kim, thank you for the support. Killer B, thank you. Paul J, thank you. Taylor Van Camp, thank you. The thrust is 6, including the SRBs, they say. That's hilarious. Eric Huff, thank you so much for the kind words there and the super generous $100 super chat. That is insane. And rest assured, we're going to continue what we do here at NASA Spaceflight with support like that to bring you guys the best coverage that we possibly can. I mean, we got a new piece of equipment delivered to your place the other day, Thomas, that was many thousands of dollars, and that was all because of the support we got on the previous stream of the launch attempt. So, safe to say, we're going to plow that right back into things. And thank you so much, everybody. Paratrooper Chad, thank you. Chopper, thank you. You want comparisons between this rocket and Saturn V? I'm going to put this back in the queue for when we're done with this, because I think that's a good one to jump right into. Bilbo Swaggins, thank you for the support. How long will the rocket take to go to the moon? Thomas or Alex?
Yeah.
Thomas, go for it.
The outbound transit is about 6 days, Jack. So there's, about 90 minutes or so in the parking orbit and things. And then once that translator injection occurs on flight day 1, which is, of course, today, it's about 6 days later before Orion arrives into the moon's sphere of influence and begins the powered outbound flight. Its first burn near the moon. There's a burn on the way for just a quick orbit correction. But other than that, about 6 days.
A hush goes over the crowd as it all collectively whispers, "Moon, moon, moon." Silas, thank you for the support. Delta 23, thank you so much. They'll be at Banana Creek viewing. None of us are out there, but I'm sure you're going to make some friends. Because anyone
That's a good spot.
Okay, good. Anyone that's dedicated enough to get a good spot for this. I mean, I was driving through Titusville last night, and basically every spot I could see was already full. So if you got a good spot, good job rocketing. City Locked Sasquatch, I can identify with that. Thank you for the support. Shuttle Pathfinder, thank you for the support. Let's see. So the foam tans during ultraviolet exposure, does that also cause foam cancer? Asking for my external tank. Keep up the good work. Oh my god, I can't believe I just read that out loud. CM, thank you for the support. Let's see. Would it be bad if it had a run? Yes, it would be bad. I think that is a safe assumption. Morgan Martin, thanks for becoming a Red Team member. Slowly steady catching up on these. Almost done, I promise, and we'll get to your questions. Morgan Martin, again, thank you. 250 by the park. Thank you so much. They ask, how does the telemetry work from the rocket on a technical level? Will there be gaps during launch? I believe that is what we were talking about earlier with the whole eclipse thing. Meaning they could not launch on Sunday. That was never an option just because of the eclipse situation where it's not that the sun is going to be eclipsed by Orion and that's a bad thing. No, it's more about having comms with the vehicle, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. It's I don't remember. We'll have to get Philip back on for this. I'm not sure if it was communications only or if they were also looking at solar panel performance and access to power. So it's those kind of things that they're looking at. And the objective is to avoid those gaps, like the question asked.
Oh, maybe it's actually literally the Earth is eclipsing the sun, and therefore they wouldn't get solar power or something along that. I do feel like Philip mentioned power constraints earlier too, so that's probably part of it. Let's see. Good question though. Chopper. No, we already did Chopper. Galantis, thank you for the support. Let's see. Desiree, thank you for becoming a Red Team member. James Juries, thank you for the support. Will all future Artemis missions be crewed, or will there be uncrewed test flights for Block 1B and Block 2?
That is a very good question. The current plan is for all future, the numbered Artemis flights, so Artemis 2, 3, 4, the ones that are launching on SLS, all of them will be crewed following Artemis 1, assuming a successful test flight. The Block 1B upgrade, which has a new upper stage, is not planned to debut on an uncrewed flight. That is, if that sounds strange to you, you're not alone in that. There's definitely been some questions about whether that's the right choice, but that is the current plan. And that's basically the only change being made at that point. The new adapter to integrate that upper stage, but the rest of the systems will be remaining the same and will have flown 3 times at that point. So there's some confidence there. As far as uncrewed test flights, though, there's of course you're going to be testing the Starship human landing system and all of the relevant tankers and propellant depots for that. So there's uncrewed tests there, of course. The human landing system is supposed to do an uncrewed demonstration landing before it ever carries humans to the lunar surface. There is a weird contractual thing where that test flight is not technically required to lift off from the moon uncrewed before the first crewed landing. I think it's might just be a result of, well, if the propulsion systems work on the way down, they should work on the way up. They're going to have to relight the engines and things to get to the moon. So maybe that's just the result of that. SpaceX could also just say, we'll still take off and show that part works just in case.
I was going to say I would be pretty surprised if they didn't, even if it's not technically one of the requirements. I mean, it just seems like it's sort of a low hanging fruit. Like if you're going to land, you might as well attempt to take off as well. Look at that venting coming now from the core stage. That looks super cool. Like Das was saying earlier,
it's literally cool.
Yeah, it's literally condensation, so it's cool. Das was saying earlier that when he sees stuff like this, it makes him feel like the rocket is coming alive, and I absolutely agree. It feels like this thing is coming alive and getting ready to go into space, which is exactly what we want to see.
That in particular is the venting from the LOX tank. So you can see 2 orange bands. So you see the tan brown there, and then 2 orange bands around the core stage. That's the bottom and like the top of the LOX tank, and the vent is actually coming from the forward skirt which is right on top of the LOX tank, and so the vent comes out of the tank and then goes through the forward skirt. And that's actually what you're seeing there. You know, the liquid hydrogen, obviously you shouldn't vent that because it's flammable, obviously. But the liquid oxygen is, if you vent that, it's not really a huge deal, especially when it's that far away from any hydrogen and all. So that's okay.
That makes sense. I don't even know how to answer this question from Alien Gaming. They say, how much hamster power is SLS?
A lot.
Yeah, thank you. I think we'll leave it at that.
We'll consult the NSF server hamsters and get back to you.
Yeah, thank you. Wiffic, thank you for the support. We appreciate that. Oh, Takuno, thank you for the support. Edward Bornman, thank you so much. They're saying, how is the fuel made and cooled to a liquid form? I think that would be a question for Air Liquide, which is one of the local suppliers around here. Let's see. Sean, thank you for the support. Denise, thank you for the support. Serial KIXZ12, thank you. Last Roman, thank you. Vincent White, thank you. Ronak42 becoming a Red Team member, also 1,000 Miles Red Team member. Randy becoming a Red Team member. A lot of new members, which is so great to see. Thank you so much.
Wow.
By H20, a Red Team member. And San gifting 5 Red Team memberships. Gotta love it. Thank you so much, everybody.
Well, all those people will be able to see the boop with Daryl and Chris G, right? And you also getting behind from the bus as well. So
yeah, me getting left behind. There's the boop. There's all the other behind the scenes stuff from like remote camera setup that we put up. So Cameron Jenkins with a Capcom membership. Thank you, Cameron. Little John becoming a Pad Rat. Kirito becoming a Pad Rat. Mike Gulliver becoming a Capcom member. Super, super awesome to see. Toru, Pad Rat member. Cat Herder Cam gifting 10 Red Team memberships. Thank you, Cat Herder Cam. Luke becoming a launch director. Thank you so much, Luke. David Gabb with Pad Rat membership. Mr. Ohayman, becoming a Pad Rat member. Thank you, David, for the support. Charles Gilligy. I'm sorry, Charles, but thank you for that generous super chat there. We really appreciate it. Jeff Constantine at Red Team. Darvin DeVere at Red Team membership. Thank you. Mark, thank you for the support. Luke, hello from Germany. Thank you for the euros there. Wolverine at Pad Rat membership. Jim at Pad Rat membership. So many members, it's the bedrock that everything we do is built upon. So thank you to everyone for becoming a new member today. We appreciate it so much, and thank you to all of our existing members. All right, I think we've caught up sufficiently. Chopper, 2 hours ago, asked, can you give comparisons between this rocket and the Saturn V, please? Who wants to jump on this one?
I can start us off, Alex. You can join. You can add some things if I miss anything. But to start, Their biggest difference between SLS, and this actually applies to the programs that preceded it, Constellation had a very similar concept. You don't want to launch everything in one launch. The Saturn V was designed to launch a crew capsule and a lander on the same exact mission, and that met with some constraints. The lander had to be small enough to fit on top of the rocket, but below the command service module, and the command module only held 3 people. The biggest obvious difference right away is that Orion carries 4 people and has all the commodities able to support that crew. So a slightly bigger crew on the crew capsule alone, and that's only with Block 1 of SLS, which is actually a downgraded version of what the rocket's real design is. Block 1B is the real design. The exploration upper stage is the purpose-built stage for sending Orion and a co-manifested payload out to the moon. The interim cryogenic propulsion stage, that first word interim really does mean that stage is a stopgap in the first couple of flights. It can get Orion out to the moon, but no co-manifested payloads other than a few CubeSats. So SLS is meant to be scaled up for the Orion capsule and a co-manifested cargo payload that is still separate from the lander that gets launched entirely separately. And by doing that, you are increasing the upmass capability of the program overall. So when comparing this particular rocket, the Saturn V had to do both jobs. The lander and the crew got launched all at once. Also, there was some different fuel choices. The first stage of the Saturn V was Kerolox fueled, so kerosene and liquid oxygen, very similar to the Falcon 9 rocket, the Atlas V rocket. Very high performance on that first stage, but not as efficient. Saturn V also had 3 stages versus the SLS's 2, although some people count the boosters as a stage. Here in the US, the convention is the boosters don't count as a stage on their own. But anyway, so different fuel choices and just different design goals. If you looked at the Constellation program, same deal. Our Ares 1 launched the crew, Ares 5 launched the lander or whatever other cargo. And by splitting the upmass between those 2 different rockets, you actually get to carry more people, more science experiments, more other cargo, more supplies to your moon missions. And that helps support a more sustainable presence, like a permanent settlement on the surface or in orbit via the Gateway Station, things like that. Those are the biggest differences.
I think SLS in its current form can carry like 2 science juniors, and the Block 1B can carry like 4 science juniors, a couple of mystery goo containers, maybe like all right, I'll stop. Anybody that doesn't play Kerbal Space Program is just like, what?
It's very confused.
Yeah, what is he talking about? I apologize. Alex, did you have anything you wanted to add in terms of the SLS versus Saturn V comparison discussion here?
I don't know if you mentioned that, but also one of the things that I did like about the Saturn V was the hydrolox stages, where common bulkhead design, where the tanks are separated just by one wall instead of being separate. In here in SLS, both the core stage and the ICPS, both tanks are separate, either by an inner tank like here on the SLS core stage, whereas on the ICPS they are literally like separated, and there's like some lattice structure just holding them together.
Yeah.
I do like that kind of design where the tanks are just separate by one wall, because it kind of drives down the dry mass of the vehicle. But
lower mass is definitely good, but I guess with a hydrolox vehicle, you kind of want those 2 tanks to be separate, just because of the nature of how hydrogen needs to be kept much colder than oxygen. So it makes sense, but yeah, I'm picking up what you're putting down. I like the common bulkhead style design, but there's different strokes for different rockets.
Yeah, but one thing to know though, on Saturn V, it was actually the opposite. The cryogenic upper stages, so the hydrolox S2 and S4V stages, had common bulkhead tank design, whereas the S1C, the first stage, which was Kerolox, had different. So it had separate tanks, which was kind of interesting compared to how it is now, where you see Falcon 9, it is common bulkhead and things like that, whereas core stage of SLS and ICPS are separate tanks. But then again, Centaur, for example, is common bulkheads too, and it's hydrolox. So there you go.
There we go, indeed. That's a really good question from Chopper there. I like to be able to put SLS into context with other vehicles, and especially Saturn V being a moon rocket. It's a really good question, and thank you for the support there once again, Chopper. Let's see here. we were talking about what could have been a crack earlier, or maybe just some frost on the foam. Kyle is saying that could have been a chalk mark, which I suppose is also possible. Thank you, Kyle, for that. Let's see. Lyle Schustein has asked, has NASA shown the inside of the Orion capsule yet? I think they've shown photos. I don't know if they have like on any of these video feeds. But yeah, we have seen photos of it, and there are what is it? Anthropomorphic test dummies in the seats in Orion. So that is a thing.
And also a pair of zero-G indicators, which is of course very important.
Yeah, and one what is it? One of them Snoopy, and one of them is a European thing
Shaun
that I
the
don't
Sheep.
remember.
Yeah, Shaun the Sheep.
Got it. Thank you.
To be honest, I don't even know who Shaun the Sheep is, and I'm European.
Is Shaun the Sheep one of those claymation?
Oh, wait,
yeah, okay, yeah.
Can I point out real quick here that we're seeing 2 Mega Moon launch pads? Because
Indeed, we are.
Starship on the other side.
I don't know if I can forgive you for saying Mega Moon launch pads, though. I mean, that's really forcing it, but
it's true. It's true. One day, Starship will launch to the moon from that other pad. It's not us, This is camera feeds from NASA, so there you go. We can mention that.
you can make me say Mega Moon anything over my dead body. But I'll move on. Let's see here. Looking for some more questions. If you guys have questions, don't hesitate to ask them. Throw them into chat. It's David James is asking us, could you say hi to my 12-year-old son, Jensen, who is watching with me, and he loves rockets. Hi, Jensen. All right. Labine Williams is asking, how long till we can expect Artemis II? And will the gateway be used? Thomas, what's the deal with Artemis II?
Absolutely. Artemis II is currently scheduled for the back half of 2024. Of course, that timeline is definitely going to depend on the success of Artemis I, but that is the current plan, and that will be augmented not with Gateway. Artemis II is actually, well, Artemis II, there's still not even really a rendezvous. The crew capsule Orion will simply do a free return trajectory around the moon. No, it's not going to dock with a lander or anything like that. The current plan for Artemis III even is also not to be relying on the Gateway at that point. The lander and Orion, of course, the Starship lander and Orion will dock directly to one another, simply because the schedule's a little uncertain with the Gateway, and it's not sure that Gateway will be ready to support that yet. If, in the event that Gateway does get online and they see a use for it, that plan could become fluid and change again. But current plan is for the Gateway not really to be involved until Artemis 4 or so, because Artemis 4 is actually a mission to deliver another module via SLS to the Gateway, and not even be a surface landing mission, with the next landing on Artemis 5. So building up the Gateway a little bit later on in the Artemis missions.
That makes sense. Excellent. Let's see here. Brian Fee is asking, any guesses on when actual launch will occur? Fingers crossed for the opening of the window, but there will undoubtedly be issues to be worked through. Well, we've already had a couple issues worked through, and we are continuing on. You can see the graphic that was on a few moments ago, that they are continuing to fill the vehicle with hydrogen and oxygen, which is exactly what we want to see. So, I mean, we could do guesses. Do we want to do guesses? I'm going to just hope for the opening of the window. Thomas, any guesses here?
Well, as far as we know, we haven't seen any issues that would directly result in a T0 change yet. We mentioned that the engine chill kickstart was delayed from when they originally planned it today, but it's still earlier than they had planned it last time. And last time they do know that the engine reached the right temperature. They gave themselves a little extra time to work it, but it does sound like that's still going to happen before we will be concerned about the T0. The thing to watch is the hydrogen fill, and you're seeing on your screen right now the actual percentages. Hydrogen's at 7% full, and liquid oxygen is at 51% currently. And as those numbers continue to rise, we will get a better idea as to if either of those are filling too slowly. Obviously, liquid oxygen shouldn't be too much of a concern, but they have been working through this liquid hydrogen issue. The teams are still evaluating the best way to resume fast fill on the hydrogen tank. While they were troubleshooting that leak, and they got into manual fill, which is what you're seeing now. So it depends on how long it takes to get back into fast fill, maybe. But so far, no reasons to think the T0 will change just yet.
I'm loving this venting from that LOX tank vent there. That is just so cool.
Gorgeous, Jack. gorgeous venting.
Chris, I don't know if you guys can hear that. Chris said she's gorgeous, and I'm inclined to agree. It is absolutely gorgeous. I like this vehicle. It's no secret that orange is my favorite color, especially international orange. FF4 F100 is the hex code. I have that memorized. Don't ask me why.
Jack really has the hex code memorized.
Yeah. FF4 F100, baby. But yeah, this is what we want to see. We want to see the vehicle start to come to life here, and that is what we're seeing. And hopefully they're able to restart liquid hydrogen fast fill here shortly. But either way, we are progressing, and everything looks good so far, which is hooray, exactly what we want to see. Here's one I don't know the answer to, so I'm hoping either of you do. KS DeVille is asking, I've been reading about a potential pending geomagnetic storm. If it were to hit, would it affect Artemis at all? You definitely don't want to be sending a crewed spacecraft through any kind of cosmic rays and storm or what have you, but this is an uncrewed craft, but that can still potentially wreak havoc on electronics, right, Thomas?
It could, but you know what? This is honestly a very interesting idea, considering this is an uncrewed test flight, and so the risk is lower. This might be just a really good data point. Part of this mission is to test radiation readings inside the Orion capsule as it goes out to space. Geomagnetic storms would be a bigger concern if this was a low Earth orbit mission. We've talked about this all the time on Starlink missions. When those storms hit Earth, the atmosphere actually expands slightly, and so missions in low Earth orbit are much more susceptible to decaying more rapidly than they're supposed to. So that would be an issue. But of course, this mission, even its initial MECO target, is a very high apogee, above 1,800 kilometers. So no risk of like no risk of anything decaying too quickly. And honestly, as Orion gets out to the moon and spends its time out there for a couple of weeks, you would have plenty of reason to say that's actually just a really good data point. Let's figure out how much radiation actually gets into the crew capsule during a geomagnetic storm. That's kind of the worst case scenario, and might even give NASA more confidence if those readings come back positive that Orion is really good at shielding astronauts in deep space. So, you know what? You could even consider it a good thing. Now, of course, the bad part is if it does end up wreaking havoc in electronics, and that gives them data that they need to shield the electronics better or things like that, that would of course be useful, but hopefully it isn't a detriment to the mission itself.
Yeah, and I believe what they're probably pointing out is that there seems to be like a sunspot kind of a little bit active, rotating in our way from the sun. So it's not yet coming. It hasn't happened yet, but it might be coming right towards us if it happens right around these days because of that. So yeah, it's still not on the way, but it might. So there you go.
So NASA is going to scream, it's coming right for us, but instead of shooting the solar storm, they're going to shoot a rocket into it. This is a South Park reference for you. I apologize. No, I don't. No regrets. It's launch day. Let's see. Here's a KSP question, because Kerbal Space Program is a super fun game. Where did it go? Oh no. Where did it go? Oh gosh, I think I might have lost it. Someone was
asking. The KSP question. Oh, there it is.
Yeah, here it is. Dwagonio is asking, would we say that the engine on Artemis I, the RS-25s, the former shuttle main engines, are equivalent to the Mammoth engine in Kerbal Space Program? What's the closest equivalent to the RS-25 in Kerbal?
No, the stock engine that looks just like the RS-25, it's the Vector, I think, because it has the crazy amount of engine gimbal, just like the real ones, and it basically looks exactly like an RS-25. So if you're looking for the stock equivalent, that's what it is.
Right, so all of you kids out there, and adults, because hey, games are fun, building your SLS right now in Kerbal, use the Vector, is what Thomas says, which, yeah, it looks the part, right? The nozzle...
Well, there's even the stock part that has 4 of them clustered, just like the SLS does. So you've got everything you need for a big orange rocket.
Big orange rocket, good. I think it's safe to say. Let's see here. Looking for some more questions. Ion Blast 101 is asking, with all the pieces attached to the rocket, it has to hinder its aerodynamics. So how do they make up for that? I think my gut reaction would be just brute force, but yeah. I really don't think it's probably not that big of a deal. But Thomas, you were the person who has literally gone to school for this sort of thing. How would you answer this?
Yeah, so I guess they're referring to the solid rocket boosters and things like that. Because if you look at the rocket, I mean, the vast majority of it is designed to be aerodynamic. If you
Well,
start at the very top.
there's like the downcomer, and there's like various bits
Oh,
and bobs, and just like this. It's not like a uniform, smooth surface, right? There are some perturbations. Is that a word? There is some bumpiness to the core stage.
There's bumpiness. Totally get the question now. So that transfer tube down the side is definitely, I guess it's a suboptimal. In theory, if you could get that inside the vehicle, you'd be more aerodynamic. But a lot of rockets have that. The Atlas V has that on its first stage. It's not entirely unheard of. And the fact is, the difference is relatively negligible. It's not as negligible as, like, the frost forms on the outside. Is that going to destroy the aerodynamics? It's nothing like that. You do have to model it. And so when they do wind tunnel testing, when they do computational computational fluid dynamics, excuse me, and simulations like that, you do take that geometry into consideration, and it does update your models. However, it's not like sticking a giant, speed brake on the side of your rocket and adding a whole bunch of drag. It's a relatively small effect. And all things considered, the rocket can, like you said, kind of brute force its way around. The top of that downcomer is rounded, so it's not like a hard surface. All things considered, they can account for it with thrust and engine gimbling and things like that.
Does the like sort of the shockwave and flow properties of air at like basically really, really fast, like hypersonic and beyond speeds, how much does that play into it as well? Like at a certain point, do those do the bumps and ununiformities on the rocket itself kind of matter less because the tip of the thing is sort of creating a shockwave and pushing everything aside, and it's, I don't know, am I sort of thinking in the right direction there, Thomas?
Yeah, you absolutely are. In fact, as the vehicle gets supersonic and hypersonic, those shock waves result in subsonic flow along other parts of the rocket. And so things like the transfer tube and things won't create additional shock waves or things like that. So as the vehicle does get into the supersonic regimes and you have to deal with shock waves and things like that, you can simulate those flows on the vehicle and justify that they're not going to cause additional issues when you go transonic and things like that.
Got it. And you can see via the graphic there that they are at, what is it, 8% hydrogen?
Yep.
Of course, and they are at 57% liquid oxygen. So looking good there. Steadily filling the liquid oxygen tank and slowly filling the hydrogen tank, but filling both. I think we're about to get another update here shortly. And while we wait on that update, I'm going to do the thing where I thank everybody profusely for all of their help in letting us do what we do. Kev Newman is asking if a wild boar gets too close to launch, will I run in to grab some bacon? Absolutely not. I would consider my life a win if I never do anything that results in a scrub of any kind of rocket whatsoever. I think that's fair to say. John Smith, thank you for the support. They say, do we have our own cameras on the launch tower, or do we access NASA streams? With your support, we have accessed the NASA streams. We get to sort of pick and choose what we're showing of all of those streams, but it costs many thousands of dollars for all the equipment to translate the fiber optics into internet signals that you are currently enjoying. So thank you everybody so much for all of the support. We literally would not have been able to do any of this without you. So Mrs. Milk, thank you for the support, becoming a Padlet member. Husker, thank you for the support. Let's see. NASA is going with Artemis. They're not going with SLS versus Starship. Both vehicles are part of the Artemis program, SLS and Starship. They are both have different purposes to serve. The Law, thank you for the support. What is your favorite launch of all time? Favorite rocket of all time? Okay, let's go around the horn. I'll say my favorite launch of all time, personally, was whatever space shuttle launch I saw as a kid that my parents were so nice to listen to annoying young me be like, can we get close to a rocket launch? Can we get close to a rocket launch? Can we get close to a rocket launch? And then wrote our senator, and we got a car pass, and we drove over from Tampa, where I grew up, and we got to see, I want to say it was STS-88, but I could be wrong. Yeah, I would say whatever shuttle launch I saw when I was a kid from 6 miles away, like, absolutely blew my mind and shaped my love, so further solidified my love of all things rockets. And favorite rocket of all time, I gotta say, I'm sorry, it's the space shuttle. I am not a fan of the space shuttle. I think it is a terrible machine, but it is simultaneously an amazing machine. It's very bad and very good. And Chris G literally just audibly gasped behind me. I think I might be fired. While I deal with that, Thomas, what is your favorite launch of all time? What is your favorite rocket of all time?
Well, I think the answer for favorite launch of all time is hopefully going to change in like 5.5 hours. Technically, I guess I can't pick this one yet. But I would also, I mean, the shuttle is a good one. I also saw one shuttle launch when I was younger, and that's definitely up there as my first ever launch too. As far as my favorite rocket of all time, though, and this is one I never saw launch, so I'm still salty about it. But I loved the Delta II rocket. It was so cool, and I missed an opportunity to see it launch in person, and I regret it ever since.
I could have sworn you were going to say Ares 1X.
Ares 1 is up there, but I never claim it's my favorite because boy, did it have some problems.
Delta 2 rules. I sort of, in my heart of hearts, wish that SLS was Delta blue instead of orange. Even though I just got done saying orange is my favorite color, I think SLS in Delta blue would have looked utterly awesome. But I like that Chris G is like literally standing over our shoulders to make sure that we mention the shuttle. Like it's like the boss is like came into the cubicle and is like, "Oh yeah, do you have those TPS reports?" Except
my bacon breakfast sandwich.
Oh, thanks for rubbing it in. I'm gonna have to go get one of those here in a little bit. But Alex, what is your favorite launch of all time? And what's your favorite rocket of all time?
Oh boy, that's see, I haven't been prepared for this one.
Alex, you had the most time to prepare to the answer. Me and Jack both answered first.
Yeah, and I was thinking of other things.
All right, I'm going to give Alex an excuse to think about this slightly longer.
Okay,
We do have
yeah.
another update here. First of all, we can see some venting from the flame trench here, I think. Let me pull up my camera view again really quick. If you look to like the bottom, yeah, there you go. Thank you, whoever removed the ticker. Shout out to the producers in the back room. But just to the right of the mobile launch platform, you can see some venting in the flame trench, and that's from venting that comes out from near the engine section, right?
Yeah,
that
that's
would make
part
sense.
of the logs venting that we see from the main propulsion system. They basically flow that through the engine nozzles. Not through the engine nozzles as in chilling the nozzles with
Right,
that,
yeah.
but like there's like a vent there on the nozzle.
Yeah. And then this is kind of a sort of a non-update, but we should relay it since it is from NASA. Basically saying the teams are still troubleshooting the liquid hydrogen issue. Basically, they saw a leak when they started hydrogen fill, and they're still working on a plan to get back into the proper LH2 flow rates. The way this is what Philip Sloss is also relaying in our back channel, saying they're going to temporarily stop liquid hydrogen flow in order to close the vehicle quick disconnect. And they're going to use some pressuring on the ground side of that line. So pressuring the umbilical side, not the vehicle side. And that will help reseat that valve between the two, or not the valve, reseat the connection between the umbilical and the rocket, and hopefully solve the leak issue when they resume liquid hydrogen flow. And the launch director, Charlie Blackwell Thompson, has approved that plan. So that is the plan they're going to work forward here in the next couple minutes and try to see if they can get back into fast fill and liquid hydrogen. Again, no word on if this is going to affect the T0, but there's definitely potential for that to happen, especially the longer this goes on.
That makes sense. All right, Alex, you had even more time. Favorite rocket, favorite launch.
Okay, favorite rocket Falcon 9 and favorite launch Falcon Heavy demo.
All right, nice and to the point there. I guess I'm not surprised. Let's see, Murph Dog, thank you for the support. Murph Dog says, "What is an alternate launch site if I'm not even going to say that out loud? If bad things happen, this is the launch site. This is basically it." Mark, thank you for the money for the coffee fund. It is definitely needed and appreciated. Alessandra, thank you for the support. Mike Matisse, thank you for the support. There were 10 liquid hydrogen tankers at his hotel this morning. They're asking if NASA is already staging hydrogen refills. It wouldn't surprise me. Thank you for the support there, buddy. Metal Kiwi, asking about a camera question. Have we done video on your camera setup? Always interested in how you remote control them, power them, solar power, batteries, etc. I'm gonna leave this one in the queue. We'll have DOS answer that later. I assume they're not talking about remotes, but you're talking about the broadcast cameras. So, speaking of broadcast cameras, look at this tilt we're getting here. The lighting on the core stage is sort of that nice little wraparound light. Oh, this is just gorgeous. I could geek out on this for like literally ever. I'm so glad we have these feeds, and I'm so thankful for everybody throwing support our way and putting your confidence in our team to be able to bring you coverage of this historic moment in spaceflight and allowing us to do things like capture these NASA feeds and broadcast them to you as we see fit, which is just like utterly bonkers. I feel like if you told basically any version of me in the last 30 years of my life that this would be a thing, I would probably, one, not believe you, and then two, upon being convinced, I'd probably like weep with joy. So it's amazing. Thank you so much, everybody. Nate Black, thank you for the support. Ben, thank you for the support. They're asking if Artemis will use Oldcom network, TDRS, I believe, or Starlink network for lunar landing missions going forward, or for Mars. I think it's going to be a deep space network kind of thing. The Goldstone GSN with the, there's like the three ground stations across the Earth. I think there's one in Australia, one in Spain, and one out here. I was going to say out here. One out in my beloved home of California, out in the Mojave Desert.
One thing to point out though is that apparently for HLS missions, so for one of the requirements for HLS was actually to be able to support an alternative communication system that didn't rely on Orion or Gateway, for example, as relays. So it will have to communicate directly through the Deep Space Network or any other alternative. And I'm thinking that SpaceX might eventually like to use an alternative. If you think
that
about
makes sense. They do like using Starlink for their own purposes, which makes sense. Here's a question from James Juries asking, why does some of the SOFI, the spray-on foam insulation, look like wood? I would really like to know the answer to this. I don't know if any of us do. Maybe this is a Philip question, but in this tilt that we just watched, some of that raceway cover did look like almost like it had a wood grain sort of look there. So, does anyone know the answer? And should I put this back in the queue for Philip to answer later?
Maybe we can come back to it, but I would mention the one thing that might be contributing to that. Some of the foam is definitely a different color than other parts of the foam. And we've mentioned earlier that the foam tans in UV light. That's simply a matter of more recently applied foam. So foam around areas where they had to access later or where parts were assembled and things like that. If foam was applied later, it will be less tan. So maybe as far as the lighting goes and the color changes, that's why you're seeing that. But as far as texture goes, I don't know if maybe Phil might have a more detailed answer later. We might have to come back.
Yeah, I'll put it back in the queue for later. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, and I'm not really sure about the core stage in particular, but I do know some rockets do use cork for protection. Some of the TPS, instead of being spray on foam, it might be cork. And so, for example, early Falcon 9 boosters used cork for TPS for protection during re-entry, and that was kind of funny because it will shut off. It was like ablative, and so it will fog all the cameras. And it will be like,
or did I lose? My phone messed up.
Oh,
you sound good to me, Alex.
Okay, then it probably was Jack. But yeah, it will just basically dirt up all the cameras and everything on the boosters, and it will be very very dirty. But now they're using any other another TPS style. But yeah, rockets do commonly use wood or like cork in much more precise terms. But don't know this one in particular because I'm not really an SLS expert in materials that they use. That's for Philip to answer later. But
yeah, well, I'll put that back in the queue, and
out.
we'll ask Philip or Chris later when they're on. Did hydrogen go down 1%? Was it at 9, or has it been holding at 8?
Yeah,
there it goes. It's kind of like ticking between 8 and 9.
Yeah, it should be dropping a little bit as they closed the so they stopped the fill of the liquid hydrogen as it was updated by the PAO before, just to be able to reseat that leak again, that plate that was leaking, and so we should see a little bit of a drop in the volume on the tank, but we'll see what happens because they're trying to fix that leak, and once we see that coming up again, that might indicate that they have restarted the filling. But yeah,
That makes sense.
Link's not good.
Let's see here. Juan Rodriguez, thank you for the support. They're working in West Texas right now. Cool deal. Thank you for the Lockman, thank you for the support. How many standard bathtubs at 42 gallons could you fill with water created from the hydrogen and oxygen burn? Somebody do the math on that. Alex, do the math on that. I'm cracking my whip.
Uh,
Come on, you're a good mathonomer.
it's too much. Too much.
Okay, we'll save that one for later, or maybe chat will do the
It's
math
a lot
and let us know.
of math.
Especially
Especially in gallons. I hate gallons. Sorry.
Gallons are good. What are you? You're a liters boy, huh?
No, I'm actually a mass kind of guy. I wouldn't be like I wouldn't mind pounds, because I prefer mass rather than volume for rockets. But that's just me.
All right, that's fair. Matthias, thank you for the support. Paul, thank you for the support. They say, if SLS had a bad time, would they test the launch escape system? No, we talked about that earlier. It is not active. Joshua, thank you for the support. They're asking if Artemis I is successful. I like these questions way more. Rather than if it runs, I want to talk about if it's successful. So they're saying if it's successful today, how do you think it will affect the new space race today? Do you think companies will ramp up quickly or stay the same? Will we see more people getting interested in space? I certainly hope that this does inspire people to be excited about space. I'm not really sure how to speak to what companies would do, but certainly hope that everything goes well today and that we enter into a new era of moon flights and people are excited about it. Gonna jump through a couple more of these here, just so we don't get really behind again. Nate Black is thank you for the support there. They're asking about our different backgrounds. That's kind of like a longer answer question. We are not ex-NASA employees. We are members of the media. We are not NASA affiliated. Our name is just NASA Spaceflight. So yeah, I'm sort of the content manager. I handle the YouTube things, and commentator and photographer. I went to film school and got in the film industry. Live in Los Angeles. That's sort of the quickest I can go through that. Thomas, what is your background?
Yeah, just a brief. I don't want to distract too much from the launch coverage, but yeah, I am an aerospace engineer, so I've got the technical background, but also been working for NASA Spaceflight for a little over 4 years now, taking the engineering knowledge and trying to translate that into language that everyone can speak. I like to go in-depth technical, but also talk bigger picture so that a lot of different people who just want to know what's going on in spaceflight can learn about it and stay up to date. So, yep, that's me.
Alex?
Well, I'm a physics student, and well, I've been following spaceflight for a long time, for many years already, and I don't know. I think that's pretty much my background. I've been working with NSF for a few months already, and live streams and articles and all of that. So there you go.
Cool. Let's see here. Mitchell, thank you for becoming a Red Team member. Mitchell also wants to know about the payload being carried along with Orion. Well, we talked about the anthropomorphic test dummies earlier, and the zero-G indicators. Is there anything else going along for the ride, like some CubeSats or something, Thomas?
There are a handful of CubeSats. I believe it's 10 CubeSats hitching a ride on board SLS today. And they're basically supporting a variety of different research missions that all kind of coincide with the Artemis program. They're all informing things like radiation exposure and things like that will help inform future deep space missions with humans on board. But yeah, 10 CubeSats on board this flight. There'll also be CubeSats on Artemis II. I don't, off the top of my head, I don't know how far or even if indefinitely CubeSats are going to be hitching a ride on SLS. It's definitely an opportunity to stick some rideshare payloads on board here and there. But yeah, there are CubeSats on board today, yes.
Love it. Big Girl, thank you for the support. Let's see. Friendly, thank you. Isla, thank you for the support. Carlos says hello from Brazil. Everyone, tell me where you're watching from right now. That's always a fun treat, is to see where around the world everybody is tuning in from. Also, side note, sorry, mod team. Let's see. Squawk Gaming, thanks for becoming a Pad Rat member. Chris K. Oh, what's up, Chris? Saying they wish they could be here. However, they're keeping an eye on the live stream. Very cool. Well, thank you, Chris. for the support and for all the help you provide. And happy birthday, belated birthday, I think. David Bender, thank you for becoming a PadRat member. Fizierge, Red Team member, thank you. KD, PadRat member, thank you. MZ, thank you for the support. They're asking if the capsule will be weighted as if it was carrying moon rock samples for re-entry. Are they doing any kind of payload simulation on this?
Not that I'm aware of. I don't think there's like a whole lot of ballast on board or anything like that. Obviously they don't have any ability to gain mass on the way out there. They're not landing or anything like that. So not to my knowledge, no.
God, I love this view.
I don't even think they're gonna be bringing that many rocks to be able to need any kind of weight ballast of sorts, because if I remember correctly, they said that they could only bring about a couple 100 kilograms, and the capsule is several tons in mass. So you're looking at maybe 1%, 2%, maybe no more than 15 or 10% of the capsule's mass. So I don't think that will move the CG that much.
Got it. And I do want to shout out to everyone that is saying where they are watching from. I see like Australia, West Palm Beach, South Africa, Germany, Florida, Shenandoah, Pennsylvania, Indonesia, England, UK, Cleveland, Dallas, Portugal, Norway, North Carolina, India, Indonesia again, Australia again, a lot of Australians, Ireland, Michigan, Earth, somebody says. I love it. And I like to ask this question now, just because, I'm going through the super chats and I'm thanking everybody for the support. And you're literally helping, by just hitting the thumbs up or hitting the subscribe button or watching the ad at the beginning of the video, what have you, all of this stuff. Becoming a member, you are helping us to bring this coverage to people literally around the world, which is so cool. So thank you for all the support, everybody. Zatheris is asking if cryogenics are flowing out of the engine. Yep, they are flowing cryogens through the engines. It is not like a spin prime test, but they are chilling the engines down or attempting to. Let's see. Fizierge gifting 5 Red Team memberships. Thank you so much. Apogee, thank you for the support. A different color parts of the orange core tank are because the foam tans in the sun, and the longer the foam is out in the sun, the darker it gets. So that is the difference there. The lighter foam is newer foam. Ben, thanks for becoming a Capcom member. Fernando, thanks for the support. Theme Park Rob, PadRat member, thank you. Karsten, thank you for the support. Richard Phipps, thank you for the support. KT says, thank you for the support. Do you think it would be possible to watch Orion splash down from anywhere in San Diego? That would be really cool to see. Chris, do we have you back to give us an answer on this while we look at this amazing view looking down at the core stage?
Yeah, first off, that's a freaking awesome view looking down at SLS and the core stage and the boosters and that business end that will hopefully take us into the sky later today. In terms of Orion's landing, its landing is probably not visible from San Diego. The closest it would get for landing is about 100 kilometers or 60 miles offshore. And then the landing ground track actually extends back from that 2,100 kilometers out toward Hawaii, where and that it's along that 2,100 kilometer ground track that could land, and just based on the fact that when the Dragon capsules come back, crew and cargo here to Florida, they're landing about 60 kilometers offshore of Daytona Beach. They're landing a little bit closer off Cape Canaveral, and I think one person has managed to see a parachute